Chapter 437. Holy Light religion was second to none in the Western continent. Under its command were thousands of troops and thousands of strong people. The Sea of Holy Light was even more vast and boundless. If it was personified, it would be a true immortal or even a higher-level existence. However, compared to that huge amount, the all-embracing characteristic of the Sea of Holy Light was more worthy of attention. Holy Light religion had hundreds of millions of believers in the Western continent. However, whether these believers were poor or rich, healthy or sick, as long as they had a devotion to the Holy Light, it was possible to get the gift of the Sea of Holy Light. This ability to unify the different wills of tens of thousands of people was exactly what Wang Lu urgently needed. Primal Chaos Heaven-splitting sword Qi and non-phase method were like an irreconcilable spear and shield. Since Wang Lu left the ancient sword tomb and inherited the legacy of Sword Demon, the elders of Lingjian School have spent a lot of effort on him. After all, an immortal-level method that could lead to the ascension after the Age of Chaos was self-evident. It was comparable to the Stellar Sword method of Lingjian School. However, even with the wisdom of the elders of Heavenly Sword Hall, they ultimately failed to come up with a feasible plan. Therefore, out of practical considerations, Wang Lu suspended the practice of Primal Chaos Heaven-splitting sword and concentrated on non-phase method. But now, Faceless One proposed a rather tempting plan. As long as he believed in the Holy Light, he could perfectly integrate Primal Chaos Heaven-splitting sword and non-phase method, combining the strengths of both. These two were top-level in their respective fields. If they could be combined into one, surpassing the immortal level would not be a problem. However, was there really such a beautiful thing in this world? Of course there is. Faceless One affirmatively replied. Holy Light is omnipotent. Wang Lu sneered. Unfortunately, the omnipotent Holy Light could not let you win 2 battles in Taoba City. In the past, the Wanxian League expedition to the Western continent, led by Supreme Tianyu, the 9 regions cultivators fought against Holy Light religion. In the end, the power of the 2 popes was indeed shocking to the people of 9 regions. However, in the final analysis it was the people of 9 regions who had the last laugh. Supreme Tianyu and Fengyin Taoist Master each defeated their opponents, which almost made the top level of Holy Light religion collapse. If Holy Light was really omnipotent, why were the spokesmen of Holy Light religion so incompetent? That's because they're only representatives, not the Sea of Holy Light itself. Faceless One naturally replied. After thousands of years of development, Holy Light religion has established its ruling position in the Western continent. During this period it not only created the glory of Holy Light, but also caused unprecedented internal friction. Wang Lu said, "You, the founder of the Priory of Zion, have the nerve to accuse internal friction." Faceless One said, "Were it not for the Priory of Zion to unify the opposing voices, the collapse of Holy Light religion would have been several hundred years earlier. Due to the long development of this huge organization, the internal checks and balances have resulted in the power being too scattered. If the Pope could receive more of the gift of the Sea of Holy Light into his own body, even if it was only 30% more, it would be useless even if the entire army of the 9 states attacked him that day. Unfortunately, after the civil strife 1,000 years ago, Holy Light religion limited the authority of the Pope and set a limit on the amount of Holy Light that could be used to avoid a disaster. However, under the restriction of the Pope, although he can shake the Western continent, in the face of the foreign invaders it would be the Holy Light believers who suffer the bitter fruit." Upon hearing this, Wang Lu could not help but wrinkle his brows. This statement was unheard of. Of course it's unheard of, because even the high level of the church is not clear about this. Only a few people participated in the secret gathering 1,000 years ago, which did not include any of the high level of the church at that time. In particular, it was kept a secret from the Pope. Wang Lu could not help but smile, thinking that the group of Holy Light believers were actually smart. This kind of thing was indeed better to keep secret. Otherwise, if any Pope knew that his strength was actually limited by others, perhaps he would not be reconciled. And since there was a capable person who could seal the power of the Pope, naturally, there would be an astonishing Pope who could lift the seal. However, that group of people could actually keep this secret for 1,000 years. This was too. Only the dead can keep secrets. Faceless One gave the answer in an understated manner. As for why he, a living person, could know about this, that was another story, and Wang Lu did not care. In short, what you mean is that the Sea of Holy Light is omnipotent, but its power in the human world is limited by others. But in 9 regions, Faceless One said, there is no holy light religion in 9 regions. As long as you are willing to convert to holy light, you are the only spokesperson in the human world. Wang Lu said, then where does the Sea of Holy Light come from? Faceless One said, don't you have a wisdom sect? For a sect leader like you, it's not difficult to change the doctrine a little. In fact, I can now clearly see the power of faith lingering in your body. Unfortunately, you don't know how to use it. Wang Lu faintly smiled and did not say much. It was not only the Western continent people who were good at playing with faith. 9 regions also had the power to gather people's hearts. However, there was indeed no such strange existence as the Sea of Holy Light. In general, all religions must have a personified totem of faith, or an ancestor or a god. But it was rare for Holy Light religion to regard nothingness as an idol. Of course, if you are not interested in the spread of Holy Light, I can do it for you. Just give me the position of Holy One, and then leave the rest of the work to me. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu could not help but sigh with emotion. This Faceless One was indeed worthy to be an expert in bewitching people. His words left almost no room for refusal. Calling this guy into the King Pill was indeed a dangerous move but also a clever move. At least with Faceless One, Wang Lu could be more determined to abandon the path of Sword Demon. As for the difficult-to-refuse condition that he put forward, very well, I'll do as you say. Give me the seed of Holy Light, and then I will appoint you as the Wisdom Sect's Holy One. You will spread the Holy Light faith. As soon as this remark came out, Faceless One was immediately stunned. Wait a minute, what did you say? Wang Lu said with a smile, I said, as you said, I have decided to convert to Holy Light. But, aren't you? Wang Lu said, I originally thought that no matter in the East or West continent, the Sea of Holy Light is connected. Once the seed of Holy Light is implanted, it is tantamount to having a pair of shackles in the body. But since you said that there is no Sea of Holy Light in 9 regions, and I will be the founder of Holy Light religion, then why not? Quickly, I can't wait to convert to Holy Light. Quickly implant the seed of Holy Light in me. Let me be the founder, win the fair, rich, and beautiful woman, and ascend to the peak of life. You don't care about the holy embryo? Do you really think I care? On the non-phase peak, the door of the simple bamboo room was pushed open. A woman in simple and elegant clothes dragged her heavy and stumbled in and then put the heavy bottle of wine on the table. How does it feel to be caught in a cocoon of your own making? On the wooden table, the dim ball slightly moved. Unexpected. Faceless One's voice was slightly tired. The woman in white chuckled. Unexpected. You obviously suffered a loss from him once, but you don't have a long memory. Faceless One was speechless. The woman in white's laughter was pleasant to hear. But how could he not perceive the murderous intention in it? His bet with her was, in the end, his loss and the price of failure. However, your ability to seek life in the midst of death is indeed not bad. Wang Wu said and then took the initiative to pour a glass of wine and put it in front of the ball. For your quick wit. However, as soon as she finished speaking, she took the glass and drank it. In any case, the ball couldn't drink wine, so this wine couldn't be wasted. In the immortal dreamland, when Wang Lu was ready to use you as a sacrifice to reveal his trump card, you were able to resolve his doubts in just a few words, making him mistakenly think that you are the reinforcement that I sent. This is your ability. Faceless One chuckled. Actually, until the end, he never fully trusted me. He wanted me to suppress the devil in his heart to achieve the pseudo-core. If I had a bit of a different thought, I would be the first one to be torn apart by his devil. Although he didn't believe you, he didn't kill you in the end. Instead, he allowed you to walk to the end as his assistant. It can be seen that regardless of whether what you said was true or false, it had a great influence on him, and your existence has indeed proved your value. And this is completely unexpected to me. I originally intended to use you as the bait for him to achieve the king pill, but in the end, you seized the opportunity to linger on. Unfortunately, in the end, it still fell short of success. Wang Wu said with a smile, fell short of success? Not really. In the immortal dreamland, You helped little Lu win against the little girl of Shangjing's sect. And the credit is real. Didn't I promise not to kill you? Are you worried that I won't keep my word? Faceless One didn't speak. Regarding the credibility of the master of non-face peak, people who knew about it would not say too much. And Wang Wu very confidently ignored this question and continued, your performance in the immortal dreamland proves that you have stolen the heaven's secret and found a way to survive. Therefore, I will not kill you, but I can spare you from the death penalty. It's hard to escape punishment. My holy light seed was fancied by you, which can be used to resolve the contradiction between Wang Lu and the King Pill. However, if the holy light seed is to play its role, it needs the support of the Sea of Holy Light, which requires someone to manage the Sea of Holy Light. Then we made a bet. If Wang Lu couldn't see through the truth, then you would still plant the holy light seed and help him reconcile the two methods. But then you will manage the Sea of Holy Light and become the Lord of Faith. In the future, if Wang Lu needs the support of the Sea of Holy Light, he would have to negotiate with you on an equal footing. Faceless One said, unfortunately, Wang Lu actually saw through the truth. As a result, I can only bow down to him as the Holy One. How does it feel to fall short of success? The ball trembled slightly. Faceless One said with a slight smile, not bad. In the future, if the Lord of Holy Light of 9 regions has the ability of Wang Lu, I can rest assured. Wang Wu was slightly surprised. Unexpectedly, you are the kind of person who would bravely carry your girlfriend to bed for the sake of lifelong sexual happiness. Faceless One indifferently responded, everything I do is for the Sea of Holy Light. As long as I can better spread my faith, I don't care about personal gain or loss. To be able to get strong support in this foreign land of 9 regions is really a pleasant surprise. Wang Wu finally had nothing to say. She happily drank another cup of wine, put the emerald green wine cup on the ball, and then left the bamboo room while laughing, flying to the Misty Peaks Golden Clay Hall. On the other side, Wang Lu's King Pill had come to an end. Chapter 438. Using the adhesive nature of the holy light to forcibly combine primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi and non-phase method, the technique used to cross the 2 continents of 9 regions and Western continent, was simply an unprecedented feat. However, because it was a feat, the risk was also self-evident. The combination of 2 immortal-level methods, every step was full of unknowns, not to mention the critical juncture of the King Pill. A little bit of carelessness would cause one's soul to fly away and scatter. However, since he had chosen this path, he could only resolutely walk on it. After seeing the domineering power of primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi, and experiencing the unshakable stability of non-phase sword chi in the kill immortal sea of blood, abandoning any one of them was as painful as castrating himself. From then on, he could no longer be a complete man. Right now, as Wang Lu was integrating his primordial spirit into his void core, there were still thousands of forks in front of him. The 2 widest paths, which symbolized the non-phase method and primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi, were gradually being pulled into one by the holy light seed. The holy light seed was personally planted by Faceless One. A golden seed was buried under his feet and soon took root and germinated. The underground root vein connected the 2 paths, and with the unique toughness of living things, it forcibly pulled them closer and closer. It was difficult to say how much of it was brute force and how much was a trick. Given that this was unprecedented in 9 regions and Western continent, no one could give a reasonable standard. Wang Lu only knew that when the 2 paths were completely combined into one, it was also the time when his King Pill would be completed, and he would truly set foot on the supreme immortal path. Becoming a Taoist master of the King Pill was a critical breakthrough for cultivators on the road of immortal cultivation. When a cultivator comprehended the great Tao of heaven and earth, they would condense their own Tao in their jade mansion. Thus, their void core would turn into a real one, and inanimate objects would initially have spirituality. Only by carrying one's own Tao could one be qualified to truly become a cultivator, which was also the origin of the word Taoist master. For Wang Lu, comprehending the great Tao of heaven and earth was not a difficult thing. With his void spirit root, almost from the moment he was born, the great Tao of heaven and earth was displayed in front of him. Condensing his own Tao was also not difficult. If an ordinary cultivator could barely achieve any Tao, it would be enough for them to rejoice. If they didn't have a superior cultivation method or inheritance, They wouldn't even have a choice. However, as the lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect, there were too many paths that Wang Lu could choose. Among the thousands of forks under his feet, no one knew how many of them could lead to a very high level. If he continued to cultivate step by step, the achievement of Supreme was just around the corner. However, what he wanted was not just the title of True Lord, nor was it limited to ascension. Whatever he could do now, he wanted to do it to the best of his ability. Otherwise, it would be a waste of his long and solid accumulation in the Shudan stage. He had stayed in the Shudan stage for too long. Since he broke through Shudan stage with the help of the mountain spirit in Grand Cloud Mountain, Wang Lu had experienced a lot of experiential learning in this stage. The trip to Grand Cloud Mountain, the trip to Western Continent, and the group of immortal tombs, any one of them could be called legendary. If it was someone else, having a legendary experience once in their life was already very rare. One fortuitous encounter was enough to make people reborn. However, Wang Lu had experienced 3 experiential learning, yet he still stayed in Shudan stage. Such accumulation was difficult for any cultivator in the Wanxian League to compare. In the immortal dreamland, Wang Lu relied on this solid accumulation to contend against Qianghua with his pseudo-core. Then the opportunity to break through to a higher stage finally came. The 50 layers of non-phase method was unified, and the magical power was smooth. Combined with the non-phase sword, which was also at the peak of the 50 layers, it was almost effortless to condense the king pill, and there was no need for external help. However, such a stage was undoubtedly a bit oversaturated. Now, it seemed that when his master forced him to cultivate to the 50th layer, perhaps she had already foreseen that Wang Lu's choice of Tao was no longer limited to non-phase method. Therefore, she used the 50th layer of non-phase method to ensure that even if Wang Lu had a change of heart in the future, non-phase method would still leave an indelible mark on his Tao. Realizing this, Wang Lu didn't know what to say. This kind of mentality of if I can't get you, at least I have to get your child, was really worthy of being the master of non-phase peak who had been destitute all his life. However, Wang Lu didn't intend to abandon non-phase method, or rather, even if he had the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi, he still intended to use non-phase method as the main body to shape his own Tao. Because this was simply a problem that couldn't be avoided. Non-phase method was not only the enlightenment method, but also accompanied him all the way to the present, experiencing countless hardships and dangers. When condensing the king pill, a cultivator's Tao should bear his own past, present, and future. And non-phase method was his past and present. To condense the king pill, how could he avoid non-phase method? Following the 51st layer of non-phase heart sutra taught by his master, Wang Lu began to circulate his magical power in the king pill. The highly dense magical power stirred his primordial spirit, and a bit of true yuan was born from the darkness. At the same time, the 51st layer of the non-phase heart sutra was instantly completed. Wang Lu saw that the thousands of paths began to sway and twist, and the 2 paths that were entangled by the holy light seed became more closely combined. The 51st layer of the non-phase heart sutra is really easy, and its only role is to strengthen the extensibility so as to combine with other methods. TSK Master, you really put in a lot of effort. Since Wang Lu broke through the 50th layer of the non-phase heart sutra under heavy pressure, the 51st layer of the non-phase heart sutra was only taught by Wang Wu when Wang Lu was preparing to break through the king pill. Considering that Wang Lu's non-phase method was created by Wang Wu, perhaps it took her a lot of effort to deduce this non-phase heart sutra for him to break through the king pill. And this was also the reason why, even though Wang Lu was deranged by Wang Wu, from another point of view, he still respected her as his master. Regarding his master's kindness, Wang Lu gladly accepted it. Then, on the basis of the 51st layer of the non-phase method, he resolutely stepped forward and integrated the primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi into it. Boom! Wang Lu suddenly heard the sound of thunder in his ears. The primal chaos world was like a crystal ball that was hit by a heavy hammer. Countless fine cracks appeared on it. The 2 tightly entangled paths began to struggle to break free. The entire king pill in his jade mansion also trembled and tore, as if it was about to split into 2. Wang Lu was shocked and quickly restrained the 2, stopping the splitting trend. However, the progress was extremely difficult. Even with all his strength, he could only barely maintain the balance. However, he did not dare to relax. The splitting of the king pill was equivalent to cutting a person in half, not to mention that he had already immersed his primordial spirit into the king pill. The splitting of the king pill might only be a waste of cultivation base, but the splitting of the primordial spirit would undoubtedly lead to death. However, at this time Wang Lu suddenly remembered something. The king pill was split into two? Suddenly, Wang Lu suddenly thought of his master's double king pill. Did she also experience a similar situation? The two incompatible paths eventually separated from each other, creating the double king pill? The unprecedented double king pill in 9 regions? Then, did his master teach him the 51st layer of the non-phase method in order to let him follow her path? Double king pill, it sounded like a good idea. If he could really coordinate the coexistence of the two king pill, when he needed to attack, he could use the heaven-splitting sword chi, and when he needed to defend, he could use the non-phase sword defense. Although the switching would inevitably be sluggish, it could still be regarded as a bright path. However, that was his master Wang Wu's path, not the path that was suitable for him. His master's aptitude was mediocre, and the lack of the attribute of her spirit root made her have no other choice. However, he himself had the dignified void spirit root, so he shouldn't stubbornly stick to his master's path without thinking about making progress. Along the way, he had faced many seemingly impossible difficulties, so there was really no reason to retreat at this juncture. In the chaotic golden core space, in the face of the two main paths that were about to separate, as well as the seed of holy light that was about to be overwhelmed in the middle of the main path, Wang Lu was calm and collected. His primordial spirit continued to penetrate again and again, unreservedly depositing it in a paste-like golden core. There was no immediate change in the situation, and the separation of the two paths was not stopped. However, Wang Lu was not in a hurry. He just continued to immerse his primordial spirit, maintaining his strength, and then waited for the miracle of time. The achievement of the king pill was never achieved overnight. According to the records of the Lingjian school, it was not uncommon for the fast ones to take 2 to 3 days, and the slow ones to take 10 to 15 days. Of course, there were those who were particularly unlucky. They had to retreat in the Golden Clay Palace for 3 years. Later, the elders of the sect couldn't help but come to check, only to find that the person who tried to break through had been possessed by the devil. They had been dead for many years and their corpses had dried up. Since the beginning of his cultivation, Wang Lu had made rapid progress in everything he did. Now he didn't care about stopping for a while in front of the king pill. In the space of the king pill, the monotonous and boring life made time seem to pass by quickly. After an unknown amount of time, the immersed primordial spirit was suddenly awakened by a cool feeling. In the space of the king pill, the fine cracks, the chaotic fog, and the two bright paths had all disappeared. Only the intense, pure and brand new magical power filled it and maintained its movement in a mysterious rhythm. The cycle was endless. When a cultivator was in the shoot-on stage, the spiritual power was highly condensed like a round pill. However, at that time the spiritual power was just condensed and there was no qualitative change. Until now, Wang Lu found that this kind of spiritual power had become new and strange. It was not the non-phase magical power that had accompanied him for more than 10 years, but it had become more stable, tenacious, and full of vigor. So that's how it is. This is the real king pill's spiritual power. Compared with it, the previous spiritual power is just like a knockoff. Feeling this brand new power, Wang Lu suddenly surged with infinite emotion. That was the feeling of being a cultivator, of being moved by the miracle of the immortal path. Although many people collectively called the spiritual power of the cultivators, but if it was carefully subdivided from the beginning of the king pill Taoist master, the spiritual power would evolve into true elemental energy, and the magical ability would rapidly expand. This was especially true for the disciples of the famous sections. Once the king pill passed, their strength would simply double. As for Wang Lu, his harvest was more than any other cultivator of the king pill. The new power had far exceeded the scope of the original non-phase method. If Wang Wu cultivated the non-phase method, then his original cultivation should be the modified non-phase method. Compared to the original version, all aspects of it were more refined. And now it should be called the non-phase method, the devil's modification, right? The primal chaos heaven-splitting sword chi had been truly integrated into the king pill, becoming a power that he could freely control. Of course, Wang Lu did not intend to use it immediately, because at the critical moment, it could be used as a very strong card. But now, for the time being, he opened his eyes and re-examined the world with the eyes of the King Pill Taoist master. Thinking about it, Wang Lu opened his eyes with a smile. Then he saw the door of the golden clay hall. With a stunned face, his master hurriedly put her finger in front of her lips. In his primordial spirit, his master's pleading voice rang out, "Don't talk, let me hide for a while. Old third, that son of AB** is chasing me to death. Isn't it just a few tens of thousands of spirit stones? Is there a need to be so stingy? That stupid Feng Yin inexplicably deducted my annual stipend, and I only took out a few tens of thousands of spirit stones from the treasury. That's very kind." Wang Lu was speechless. Damn, as the Taoist master of the King Pill, the first thing he saw was such an ugly thing, it was really touching. The next moment, Wang Lu gently opened his mouth, and the true yuan in the King Pill surged, so that his voice instantly spread throughout the 12 peaks of Spirit Sword sect. Even many of the protective arrays couldn't stop it. "I've caught the escaped fifth elder. 998 spirit stones. I'll bring the escaped prisoner home. King dare to sell me?" At the same time, the door of the golden clay hall suddenly opened. "Fifth junior sister. Accept the sect's punishment." Chapter 439. Spring left and autumn came, and it was the annual Autumn Fat Day of Lingjian School. On this day, the chefs of the major cafeterias of Lingjian School were busy, offering a sumptuous meal for the sect's disciples. Among them, the Carefree Peak Cafeteria specially invited a team of famous chefs from the Wanxian League's Heavenly Fragrant School. Their leader, Master Bai Chia, was impressively a Taoist master of Yuanying stage. His immortal feast had been famous in 9 regions for more than 100 years. Several disciples of Master Bai Chia had also inherited 50 to 60% of his skill. In the Carefree Peak, dozens of tables of wine and dishes were set out one after another. For a time, it was as if there was a rainbow pillar of light rising to the sky on the Carefree Peak. Even the mountain protection array could not cover it. Under the impact of the pillar of light, it was on the verge of collapse, as if it could not resist the temptation of delicious food. What was more valuable was that the dishes cooked by Heavenly Fragrant School could not only satisfy the appetite, each dish had a unique effect, which, after eating, was greatly beneficial to one's cultivation. This was also the result of the growing reputation of Lingjian School, the expansion of business, and the increasing influence of the sect in recent years. In the past, the 6th elder, who was in charge of the sect's financial power, would not agree to spend a huge amount of money to hire a chef. Moreover, the masters of Heavenly Fragrant School could not be invited by money alone. For example, on this year's Autumn Fat Day, there were as many as hundreds of sects that submitted invitations to Heavenly Fragrant School, but only 2 or 3 of them could get their Yuanying stage masters to make a move. This year, even Royal Soldier Sect was not able to taste the craftsmanship of Heavenly Fragrant School. Moreover, the best craftsman in Heavenly Fragrant School, Master Bai Chia, uncharacteristically did not go to Shangjing Sect, but instead came to Spirit Sword Mountain in Blue River region. In fact, the biggest reason why Heavenly Fragrant School attached so much importance to Lingjian School was that, in recent years, Lingjian School's status in the group of immortal tombs had been rising, and its influence on Plentiful City and the group of immortal tombs even overwhelmed that of Shangjing Sect. And in recent years, Heavenly Fragrant School happened to need to collect food resources from the group of immortal tombs. Thus, the two sides hit it off. At the same time, the lead disciple of the younger generation of Heavenly Fragrant School would go to the group of immortal tombs next year to receive experiential learning. At this time, he came to Lingjian School to seek the experience of the currently recognized number 1 person in the younger generation. A year ago, the 5 super sects of the Wanxian League sent their lead disciples to the group of immortal tombs at the same time to explore their respective series of immortal dreamlands. The 5 lead disciples accidentally encountered each other in the immortal dreamland and launched a fierce competition. The final result was particularly intriguing. In theory, the lead disciple of Shangjing Sect, Qianghua, had harvested the vast majority of the energy in the immortal dreamland with the Kill Immortal Sword. Hundreds of millions of creatures had been purified by the immortal sword. and the resonance between Qianghua and this immortal treasure had achieved an unprecedented great improvement, which was even rarer than the improvement of the realm. With Qianghua's aptitude, there was no bottleneck in her cultivation during the King Pill period. If she continued to cultivate step by step, then advancing to the nascent soul stage was almost guaranteed, and even reaching the deity transformation realm would not be difficult. However, the immortal slaughtering sword was an immortal artifact, so obtaining a perfect resonance with it was something that could only be chanced upon by luck. Nowadays, in the entire immortal cultivation world of 9 regions, the number of cultivators who could perfectly resonate with an immortal artifact could be counted on one hand. In addition to Qianghua, the improvement of Zhanzai of 10,000 Arts Sect, Zhou Mumu of Kunlun Sect, and Xiang Liang of Royal Soldier Sect was also obvious. Their overall strength was at least 10% higher than before, which meant that if they fought with their original selves, the outcome could be determined within 10 rounds. Then it was Wang Lu's turn. As the final winner of the 5 Blood Spirit Crown competition, his harvest should be the biggest. Even after Qianghua returned to the mountain, she vaguely showed her admiration for Wang Lu. Therefore, the world was curious about how many things he had harvested in this ring. What was the magical effect of the 5 Blood Spirit Crown? Unfortunately, unlike the other 4 disciples, Wang Lu immediately went into closed-door training as soon as he returned to the mountain. The reason was that he wanted to break through the King Pill stage. This also surprised those who thought that Wang Lu had already broken through to the King Pill stage. What was even more amazing was that Wang Lu's closed-door training was shockingly long. For a whole year, he was in closed-door training in the Golden Clay Hall, which was specially designed for the disciples of the Misty Peak to break through to the King Pill stage. If the elders of the Lingjian school hadn't confirmed that his breathing was stable during his closed-door training, many people would have suspected that he had failed to break through and died. Without the various anecdotes brought by Wang Lu, the 9 regions seemed a bit lonely. However, last month, the news that Wang Lu had successfully broken through to the King Pill stage finally came out, which shocked the cultivators who paid attention to Wang Lu, and made them look forward to his next action. Wang Lu had always been a person who couldn't bear loneliness. In his more than 10 years of cultivation, he basically went into closed-door training on the mountain for a few years, and then came out to do a big thing. After that, he would go back to closed-door training for a few years, and then come out again to do another big thing. Now that he had been in closed-door training for a year and had successfully broken through to the King Pill stage, he ought to go down the mountain and show off his skills. However, Wang Lu was contrary to his usual behavior. After advancing to the King Pill stage, he just stayed in the mountain and refused to meet any foreign guests. During this period, Qianghua invited him to drink tea in Plentiful City, but he was declined. His arrogance was even bigger than that of many elders. Now, thanks to the visit of the Heavenly Fragrant School's cultivators, outsiders had the opportunity to see Wang Lu. In the Misty Peak cafeteria, the lead disciple of the Heavenly Fragrant School, Gao Tang, curiously looked at the handsome young man in front of him and couldn't help but think of all kinds of legendary stories about him. In Shudan stage, he went to the Western continent, cooperated with the gods of the Western continent, and plotted to kill the Holy One of the Western continent, who was equivalent to a supreme. More than a year ago, he defeated the famous Qianghua fairy, and was now regarded as the strongest cultivator of his generation. And compared to his cultivation base in the immortal path, his strategy was even stronger. And he was fortunate enough to listen to Wang Lu's strategy experience, which was a rare and precious experience. It was just that, no matter how he listened to it, it felt strange. The second is to strengthen the leadership of the organization. The sect should clarify the leadership responsibility, set up a strategy team led by the elder in charge, and the backbone of each department should participate. At the same time, clarify the division of responsibility, to ensure that each link of the work has a corresponding person in charge. The fourth is to firmly grasp the implementation. We should earnestly strengthen the implementation of the task deployment in each link. Wang Lu's patient and meticulous lecture had lasted for almost half an hour. However, Gao Tang, who had always boasted of his good perception, felt dizzy. He only felt that every word that entered his ears could be understood, but when connected, it was like a mountain of clouds and mountains of fog. In the legend, there was a secret book called the Wordless Heavenly Book, which could only be understood by the predestined person. Now it seemed that he had obtained a similar secret book. Although there were words in the heavenly book, its true meaning was still difficult to understand. Or rather, could it be that Wang Lu's experience in creating many miracles was this kind of bureaucratic work report? Heavenly Fragrance School did not hesitate to become enemies with Shangjing sect, and sent a luxurious team of chefs to Spirit Sword Mountain, just for this kind of experience? As if seeing Gao Tang's confusion, Wang Lu, who was reclining at the dining table, suddenly looked up from the manuscript in his hand and said with a playful smile, "Junior brother Gao Tang, Heavenly Fragrance School's culinary skill is the best in 9 regions. Your respected master Bai Chia's famous white sliced fragrant meat once lured a certain mountain to condense its spiritual wisdom, giving birth to a mountain spirit, which has the magical effect of turning life and death. May I ask, if you were to make that plate of white sliced fragrant meat, would it have the same effect?" Gao Tang somewhat ashamedly said, "I'm afraid it would be difficult even for 10% of my master's skill." "Then why didn't Master Bai Chia teach you the essence of white sliced fragrant meat?" Gao Tang said, "Cooking must be done step by step. My basic skill is far less than my master's. No matter how hard I work, my achievement in cooking a dish alone would be limited." Wang Lu said, "Therefore, in view of the fact that your IQ and ability are too different from mine, even if I teach you my experience, it would be meaningless to you. At present, the most suitable thing for you is this simple and vigorous report." Gao Tang couldn't help but ask, "But what I said just now, most of it is aimed at the overall requirements of the sect, not personal guidance. Moreover, those methods can't be implemented in a day. This is also," Wang Lu said with a smile, "Oh, I see. You want a quick way? That's simple. You quickly return to the sect, and use the authority of the lead disciple to steal the sect's secret manual. Steal as much as you can, and then take the secret manual and betray the sect and seek refuge in the Royal Soldier sect. The Royal Soldier sect is one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, so their sect's construction can definitely meet my requirements, which can save you 80 to 90% of your effort. And they have been coveting your Heavenly Fragrance School's divine marching provisions for a long time. As long as you offer them the secret manual and promise to serve the Royal Soldier sect wholeheartedly, naturally, you will get many benefits." Gao Tang angrily said, "Senior brother Wang Lu, don't go too far." Wang Lu's eyes turned cold, and the reflection of the king pill flashed in his eyes. In a split second, the biting cold aura made Gao Tang's whole body cold. The Shudan in his jade mansion issued a muffled sound and his magical power dissipated. As the most outstanding disciple of the current generation of Heavenly Fragrance School, he had cultivated for 30 years and had reached peak Shudan stage. However, unexpectedly, he couldn't withstand Wang Lu's casual stare. Let's be clear, the exploration of the group of immortal tombs has never been done by just moving your mouth. I can repeatedly create miracles because behind me is one of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League. The methods that I cultivate, the knowledge that I dabble in, the pills that I take, and the teammates that accompany me are all top level in 9 regions. Although your Heavenly Fragrance School is one of the top-ranked sects, when it comes to the exploration of secret areas and the actual combat ability of cultivators, it's only at the level of a middle-ranked sect. And you, as the lead disciple, have amazing talent in cooking, but your cultivation is only at the level of my Lingjian School's outer court disciple. Right now, if your Heavenly Fragrance School wants to gain something in the exploration of the group of immortal tombs, the only way is to strengthen the overall construction of the sect according to what I said. If you really can't wait, then you can only rely on Royal Soldier sect. After all, renting is not as good as buying, and buying is not as good as selling. As long as you sell the sect, you can have everything." Seeing that Gao Tang was still tangled, Wang Lu sneered, "If you don't want to listen, then get lost. In any case, the advance payment will not be refunded." Upon hearing this, Gao Tang sighed and sat down. "Senior brother Wang Lu, please continue." Half a day later, Wang Lu's report ended. With a complicated look, Gao Tang put away the several opinions on Heavenly Fragrance School's exploration of the group of immortal tombs, and thanked Wang Lu. Before leaving, he reached into his bosom, took out a letter, and handed it to Wang Lu. "This is what Senior Sister Zhou of Kunlun sect asked me to bring. She said that previously, she sent more than 10 emails through the regular channel, but all of them fell into the sea. No matter what, she couldn't contact you. Therefore, she asked me to give this to you when I have the chance. Wang Lu somewhat curiously took the letter. Previously, he was busy sorting out the method, so he refused to accept any private messages. He thought that with his network of interpersonal relationships, no one would be in a hurry to find him. Unexpectedly, there was actually Zhou Mumu who was in a hurry to find him. Opening the letter, Zhou Mumu spoke concisely. A temporary meeting of the lead disciples of the 5 uniques will be held in the middle of next month. Qianghua, Xiangliang, and some idiot have promised to attend. As for you, it's up to you whether you want to come or not. Who is begging you? The last few words penetrated the back of the paper, and an impatient anger came from the ink. Chapter 440. Okay, let's analyze the situation. Let's assume that the real intention of this letter is that Zhou Mumu, out of her strong and uncontrollable love for me, lured me to go to Kunlun Immortal World using the gathering of the lead disciples of the 5 uniques as an excuse. Then, through poisoning, bewitching, confusing, and other methods, she lured me to have an improper relationship with her on the spiritual level, thus forcing me to maintain a close relationship with her for a long time. So, how should I deal with it? In the Misty Peak cafeteria, several disciples of Spirit Sword Sect gathered together to discuss a major event. Senior brother Wang Lu, we know you very well. As the lead disciple of Lingjian School, every move of yours is of great importance. Therefore, even if our power is meager, we will do our best to give you advice. But, do you really think Senior Sister Zhou would send you a letter based on that reason? At the dining table, Wen Bao had a helpless look on his face. Beside him, the curious Luli was excitedly looking around, both of her eyes shining. Seeing her in high spirits, Wen Bao asked, Sister Luli, what do you think? Luli said, what about Sister Aya's new dish? I heard from Wang Lu that Sister Aya has invented a new dish, and the taste is surprising, so I specifically came to taste it. Wen Bao said, do you really take this reason seriously? There's only one reason why the new dish in the Misty Peak cafeteria is surprising, okay? Really? I'm curious, which reason is it? A clear voice came from behind Wen Bao, which made all the hair on his body stand up. The next moment, a petite but powerful figure appeared at the dining table. Aya carried a heavy round plate and put it on the table. On top of a soft yellow cake, there was a sword-shaped candle. The top of the candle was burning with a blazing flame, but it didn't damage the sword. First of all, I wish you a happy first birthday. Aya gently smiled. According to the custom of U9 regions people, Taoist Master King Pil is a new disciple. Today should be the first anniversary of you achieving King Pil, so this stone sword is my gift. Then, in my opinion, Zhou Mumu's letter should be true. The fierce true yuan on the letter doesn't seem to be deliberately fake. Although I'm only good at identifying swordsmen, Zhou Mumu's temperament is as straightforward as a sword, so she shouldn't be faking it. At the other end of the table, Wang Lu sneered and said, or maybe the other party is deliberately using this to confuse me. Aya shrugged helplessly and turned to leave. I'll prepare drinks for you. Senior brother Wang Lu, in my opinion, perhaps Senior Sister Zhou wants to exchange pointers with you. The young man sitting next to Wen Bao was wearing a black and white robe. He was a bit older and had a Shudan aura around his body. Although he had not reached grand accomplishment, it showed that his foundation was deep. He was the inner court disciple who led Wang Lu to the small clear sky peak more than 10 years ago, Yu Yun. As far as I know, the rest of the chief disciples have often exchanged pointers with each other over the past year, in order to verify their cultivation. Among them, there are 4 people who have won and lost to each other. In the case where Senior Sister Qianghua does not use her Slaughter Immortal sword, the disparity between them is almost the same. But if we want to truly confirm the ranking, we still need your participation. Wang Lu snorted. Believe me, after experiencing the battle for the 5 Blood Spirits crown, the 4 of them will not be interested in fighting with me. In a sense, they are, after all, people with self-respect. Then perhaps someone else asked Senior Sister Zhou to contact you? After all, you refused everyone's letter before. Perhaps some people thought that it was because your relationship was not good. And Senior Sister Zhou has the best relationship with you, so she is most likely to contact you? Yu Xiniao tried to guess. But Wang Lu continued to deny it. The problem is that Zhou Mumu's relationship with everyone else is not good. They should have asked someone else but not Zhou Mumu. When Bao finally could not help but lament, "Senior brother, this is not right, that is not right. We really can't keep up with you. Why did you call us here?" Wang Lu lightly said, "Of course, I know the difference in IQ between you and me, so I called you here to rule out the wrong answer." Damn. When Bao suffered a major blow, dispirited, he pinched a piece of cake and put it in his mouth. The next moment, damn, if the cake maker was not the Night King, whose power was comparable to that of a supreme, when Bao would have vomited it on the spot. And Wang Lu was eating the cake as if nothing had happened, and then he looked at the letter in front of him and fell into deep thought. Zhou Mumu's letter was very urgent, but Wang Lu thought that this matter could not be rushed, because it was too strange. At the level of the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, almost everything was important. The 5 of them could decide on a small matter by themselves, but if it was related to the meeting of the lead disciples, it must be through the sect's channel. In other words, this letter should not be directly sent by Zhou Mumu to him, but should be sent by Kunlun sect to Lingjian school. Because it came too unruly, Wang Lu had to doubt the real intention of this letter. Zhou Mumu hid it from the sect, and not only Zhou Mumu, but several other sects' lead disciples took the same action at the same time. There must be a reasonable reason. So let's go back to the original question. Do you think Zhou Mumu fell in love with me? Senior brother, I admit that senior sister Zhou does have enough reason to fall in love with you, but this possibility is too small. Wang Lu laughed in his heart. That was right. Although his relationship with Zhou Mumu was really good, even when Bao knew that it was almost impossible for Zhou Mumu to fall in love with him. And since it was not love, then the purpose of this letter, then he could only start to consider the second scenario. If this letter was sent for some not so good reason, then, since you are curious, then let's go and take a look. In the kitchen, Aya's soft voice came, and then the girl wearing a clean apron walked out of the kitchen with a cup of clear drink. As she walked, she took off the apron, and countless golden light spots gathered out of thin air and condensed outside her body. After a clear and crisp sound of metal, the girl changed into her usual military uniform. If you are worried about accidentally entering a dangerous place, I will accompany you. It just so happens that I have been idle on the mountain for too long, so I want to go down the mountain to have a look. Legend has it that Kunlun Mountain is the oldest immortal sect, so I am very interested in seeing it. With a supreme-level swordsman accompanying him, there was no place in 9 regions that he couldn't go. Wang Lu thought for a moment and said, "Since you want to go, it's not impossible for me to take some time to accompany you." 3 days later, Wang Lu and Aya appeared at the foot of the Immortal Mountain. Legend has it that Kunlun Mountain was the origin of the Immortal Path in 9 regions, and it was also the location of the most ancient sect in 9 regions. Standing in the Immortal Mountain, one could feel that the air was filled with a profound aura, which was the spiritual energy of Kunlun Mountain that only the cultivators of Kunlun Mountain could enjoy. At the foot of the mountain, Zhou Mumu had been waiting for a long time. Through the extremely fast frequency of footsteps, the girl's impatience could be clearly seen. "You're really late, my dear lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect." After the obviously ironic voice, Zhou Mumu saw the petite girl next to Wang Lu and suddenly asked in surprise, "Hey, you actually brought someone with you?" Although it's not clearly written in the letter, this kind of appointment should be done alone, right? As soon as her voice fell, Zhou Mumu exclaimed again, "My God, a supreme expert?" Even if she was the lead disciple of one of the 5 uniques, when she saw a supreme-level expert in close proximity, Zhou Mumu would still involuntarily feel fear. This was an involuntary reaction due to the difference in level between cultivators. "But you've really changed. You actually started to bring a bodyguard with you. Are you afraid that I'll harm you?" Wang Lu said with a smile, "Senior Sister Zhou, you misunderstood. Aya is not my bodyguard." With that, he put his arm around Aya's shoulder and, under the latter's surprised eyes, took her into his arms. "She's my girlfriend. We've known each other for many years and have long developed feelings for each other. It's just that, because of the difference in age, nationality, stage, and so on, there's no clear relationship between us. Recently, with the success of the King Pill, I realized that I must be honest with my feelings, so I began to associate with her." Don't look at her amazing strength, she's actually very clingy. When she heard that I was going to Kunlun Mountain, she kept pestering me to come with me. I couldn't dissuade her, so I had to agree. Wang Lu said and then smiled at Zhou Mumu. Senior sister, you're also a person who's experienced in emotional matters, so you should be able to understand my difficulties. You're the one who's experienced. Zhou Mumu was silent for a long time. Her expression was twisted, wanting to say something but hesitating. Wang Lu thoughtfully said, if you feel that there are too many things to say, you can try to smile. Well, since you insist on bringing an outsider, then do as you please. In any case, it shouldn't matter if it's just a Western continent person. Zhou Mumu shook her head, then stretched out her right hand, and a blood-colored spear appeared in her hand. Do you remember this? Of course Wang Lu remembered. In fact, seeing a Yes blood-marked divine spear really awakened a lot of memories. Is this the inheritance that you got after you became the mistress? You're the fucking mistress. The blood-colored divine spear mercilessly stabbed out, but Wang Lu successfully blocked it with the sword of Mount Kuan. However, after that spear, Wang Lu's face slightly changed. The feeling of this spear seems a bit familiar. Yes, a bit familiar, right? Zhou Mumu's face turned solemn as she put away the blood-marked divine spear. Because all of this is not over yet, the battle in the immortal dreamland is still going on. When I first saw this blood spear, I thought it was my reward, but soon I found out that it was just a key to guide me to a deeper place. Perhaps it's because you've been in seclusion for too long that the signs haven't appeared yet, but I believe it's only a matter of time. At least a few others have. We've all encountered the same situation. The story of the demon world is not over. While speaking, Qianghua faintly interrupted. Her eyes glanced over at Wang Lu and Aya, and then looked behind her. Zhan Zai and Xiang Liang were already there, each with the inheritance that they obtained from the immortal dreamland. Their complexions were somewhat heavy. Regarding the background story of the 5 blood spirits' crown, they all had their own fortuitous encounter at the end of the immortal dreamland. Since it was related to the immortals and demons, they had to be cautious, and all kinds of encounters in the past year forced them to take some action. After a long silence, Zhou Mumu took the first step and said, I think we may have to go to the demon world. Chapter 441. Shay. What did you say? Demon world? After hearing Zhou Mumu's great plan, Wang Lu's first reaction was to confirm that he had heard it correctly. Since he achieved the King Pill, because of the fusion of the 3 forces, there were many times when his control of his body was still sluggish. Therefore, although it sounded like the demon world, it could also be that she wanted to touch the shoulder, a kind of intimate behavior between a man and a woman. It could also be touching the sword, a kind of sharp weapon located between a man's legs, also an intimate behavior between a man and a woman. However, Zhou Mumu quickly repeated, of course it's the demon world. After confirming that he had heard it correctly, Wang Lu could only doubt Zhou Mumu's intelligence. Senior sister Zhou, let me ask you, if we draw a map for 9 regions, can each map be colored with 4 colors so that the countries with common borders are colored with different colors? What? Zhou Mumu looked confused. When Wang Lu repeated the question, the several lead disciples had different reactions. Xiang Liang turned a deaf ear to it, obviously not interested in it. Zhou Mumu thought for a while and then shrugged and said, of course it can. Qianghua took a deep look at Wang Lu. She had already guessed the difficulty, so she didn't delve into it. Only Zhan Zai fell into deep contemplation. His face was sometimes relaxed and sometimes heavy. Finally, he simply lay on the ground and drew thousands of calculation talismans with his thunder palm. Each talisman could be calculated many times in an instant. However, even though Zhan Zai had a lot of calculation talismans around him, he still couldn't solve it. In the end, his face turned pale and he sweated profusely. If it weren't for Qianghua's timely immortal dew sword, perhaps Zhan Zai would have a heart failure. What a terrible soul confusion technique. Wang Lu, where did you learn it? There was both fear and admiration on Zhan Zai's face. Scholar Gu Deli of Ingji country's ancient village taught me. Wang Lu frowned for a while. In short, it seems that the 4 of you are the real deal. We won't joke about this kind of thing. Zhou Mumu said, you don't feel it because you haven't been summoned by the demon realm, but the few of us have suffered a lot. As Zhou Mumu spoke, she stretched out her right hand in front of Wang Lu. On her white wrist there was a faint line of blood. When Wang Lu got closer, he could feel a surge of bloodline power contained within. It's like it's alive. I can often hear it whispering in my ears. Although it hasn't caused any substantial effects, it's like a thorn in my back. Wang Lu nodded. This is the original sin of being a mistress. You're the mistress. Zhou Mumu raised her diamond ring and attacked. Wang Lu laughed and dodged to the side. He then asked the others, "Is your situation the same?" "It's the same." Qianghua explained. At least the 36 chains of immortal dreamlands developed by our 4 sects are the same. This chain is a long-term strategy. With our situation, it would be difficult for us to directly intervene in the next 10 years, so we can only seek a breakthrough in other directions. That's still not right. Wang Lu said. Since when did you attach so much importance to the cultivation-based requirements of the immortal dreamlands? The last chain clearly requires cultivators below the King Pill stage to participate. But didn't you all suppress your cultivation base and join with the peak Shudan stage? Since you all have a secret method to disguise as a Shudan, naturally you should also have a way to disguise as a Yuanying. With the strength of the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, ordinary low-level Yuanying stage cultivators may not be our opponents. The difficulty of the last chain is astonishing. Qianghua emphasized, moreover, it is different from the previous immortal dreamlands that we experienced. This chain is very cruel, and the death of cultivators is really irreversible. So far, Shangjing sect team has lost 3 Yuanying stage elders in this chain, and none of them is an ordinary low-level Yuanying stage. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu's eyebrows slightly trembled. This was really a heavy loss. In the previous struggle for the 5 Blood Spirit Crown, Shangjing sect team seemed to have suffered a heavy loss, but later they found out that even if the participants' souls were scattered in the immortal dreamland, they would be resurrected in the vast sea of stars by the immortal dreamland, and there was no actual loss. In fact, before the last chain of the 36 chains, the Wanxian League had been exploring the group of immortal tombs for more than a year, and there were not many actual casualties. Zhou Mumu sighed. The progress of Kunlun sect is also not smooth. We lost 1 person, a high-level Yuanying stage cultivator. In order to protect 2 junior brothers, he died in the immortal dreamland. Although Xiang Liang and Zhan Zai didn't speak, it could be assumed that their situation was similar. No wonder I haven't heard about the situation of the Heavenly Sword Hall elders, exploring the group of immortal tombs in the past month. It's so dangerous, I'm afraid they've simply put it aside. Thinking about the situation of his own sect, Wang Lu quickly made a judgment. Unlike those super sects that had as many Yuanying stage as dogs, even though the Lingjian school's prestige had gradually risen in the past 2 years, it ultimately could not offset the disadvantage of its sparse population. In the entire sect, there were only a few Yuanying stage elders, which could be counted with 2 hands. Moreover, with the head of the sect leader as a guarantee, there was absolutely no elder who was in seclusion. Therefore, in the face of an immortal dreamland where even a Taoist master of Yuanying stage was in danger, it was impossible for the Lingjian school to be like other people and use their lives to fill the gap. After realizing that the strategy of this chain might take a long time, they were mostly waiting for Shangjing sect and the other sects to achieve results first, and then play their advantage. Well, although I still think that to find clues, the 36 chains is the first choice, but since you all think that this road is not going to work, then it's not impossible to explore from the direction of the demon world. When it comes to the understanding of the demon world, in addition to Shangjing sect, Kunlun sect is the first. Senior Sister Zhou gathered us here in order to facilitate the gathering of materials? Yes, the place of origin of Kunlun sect has the oldest library in 9 regions. Perhaps it's not as extensive as the 10,000 Art sect, but when it comes to the secrets of the demon race, even Shangjing sect people don't know more than us. It's just that there are too many records in the library of Kunlun sect. If we want to find the needed information from the vast sea of records, it's really beyond our power to rely on just 1 or 2 people. Not to mention that each of us has different situations, so it's best to search separately. Before she could continue, Wang Lu could not help but interrupt. Wait a minute, Senior Sister Zhou. Do you mean to let us outsiders go deep into the place of origin of Kunlun sect? And even read the information in the internal library? When did your sect rules become so loose? Is Kunlun sect going to reform and open up? Zhou Mumu said. The sect rules have never said that outsiders are allowed to enter. But according to the rules of Kunlun sect, if the lead disciple thinks it's necessary, he or she can ignore some of the rules. Wang Lu could not help but sigh with emotion. Your Kunlun sect's lead disciple actually has such a privilege? That's really good. Zhou Mumu curiously asked, isn't this the norm? The lead disciple is the successor of the sect, of course he or she should have the privilege. Why doesn't your Lingjian school have it? I feel like I'm implicated by someone. In short, I will take you to the place of origin. But before that, I need you to swear that you will never read the confidential information that has nothing to do with this operation, and you must not tell others about what you saw and heard today. Zhou Mumu's request was very reasonable. After the several people made their respective vows, Zhou Mumu looked at Aya, who came with Wang Lu. She opened her mouth, wanting to say something but hesitated. Aya smiled. I understand you don't have to worry about me. I'll wait for you here. Wang Lu, how many days do you want? Wang Lu said, 5 days. Very well, if I don't see you in 5 days, I'll go find you. While speaking, Aya looked up. Her green eyes penetrated the clouds and mist that lingered outside Kunlun sect all year round. Even in the face of the most ancient immortal cultivation sect in 9 regions, Aya still had no fear. Wang Lu laughed in spite of himself. Thank you for your concern. It's good to have a heroic spirit, but seriously, if you don't see me when the time comes, are you really going to kill your way to Kunlun sect? Aya lightly said, no, when the time comes, I'll visit you in the name of cooking exchange. I'll use peaceful means before using force. Cooking exchange? You're clearly provoking me first. Chapter 442. Tisk Tsk Tsk. Riding the primal chaos golden halo. Zhou Mumu completely ignored the clouds in front of her. Instead, she locked her eyes on Wang Lu, sizing him up and down. This kind of scrutinizing gaze from Taoist Master King Pil could not be withstood by ordinary people. Even if Zhou Mumu had no intention to hurt people, she could still make ordinary people feel as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them. Even if a cultivator was not at the shoot-on stage, he would not be able to withstand her gaze. Unfortunately, the person Zhou Mumu was sizing up was Wang Lu, the invulnerable Wang Lu who had the best defense at the same level. Seeing Zhou Mumu's gaze going back and forth endlessly, he clicked his tongue. Wang Lu was not polite. He directly rolled up his sleeves, revealing his muscular arms, and then posed all kinds of bodybuilding poses, which made Zhou Mumu stagger and almost fall from the diamond halo. You, Wang Lu snorted. Humph, are you blinded by the flash of my biceps? I'm being merciful, otherwise, I would have blinded you with my pectoral muscles. Enough, your disgusting action is second only to that of the stellar fairy. Just now my immortal heart almost collapsed. Wang Lu's eyes lit up. This means that there is a weak point in your cultivation. Do you need me to help you strengthen your special training? There's no need. I still want to be an upright person. When Zhou Mumu said this, she felt that the anger that she had raised with great difficulty had completely dissipated. Alas, at first I just wanted to ask you, what is the relationship between you and that she-woman? She seems to be deeply in love with you, but you two are not like ordinary cultivation companions. Wang Lu laughed. Of course not ordinary cultivation companions. I was her gigolo. Puff. This time Zhou Mumu really lost her balance and fell directly from the diamond halo. She hurriedly regained her balance. They were walking in the mountain protecting array outside the Kunlun Immortal Mountain. According to the usual rules, not to mention a Taoist in Jindan stage, even a supreme-level cultivator could not fly freely without the permission of the owner of the mountain gate. Zhou Mumu had used her authority as the head disciple to lead the way. She also had to maintain her balance during the flight. If she was careless, she would fall. In the end, forget it. Most people won't be able to understand your matters. However, I really envy you for having a supreme-level bodyguard. Zhou Mumu said, even if it's that person from Shangjing, it's impossible for him to have a perfected Lord Elder protecting him. Although the position of the lead disciple of the 5 uniques was pivotal, Supreme-level cultivators were equally revered. Even in Shangjing sect, there were only a handful of supreme-level cultivators, and any one of them was a precious force that could not be ignored by the sect. Unless the sect encountered a major situation, even the sect master could not order them around. Therefore, when Zhou Mumu saw that Wang Lu could casually call over a supreme-level bodyguard, she was a little envious. Wang Lu laughed. It's easy to get a bodyguard. With senior sister Zhou's looks and aptitude, you can just find an old man at the level of a supreme, and you'll have a bodyguard. Furthermore, when this old man passes away, you'll be able to inherit his inheritance. I'm afraid that you'll receive even more than you would as the chief disciple. Zhou Mumu decided not to talk to Wang Lu anymore. After an unknown amount of time, the group of people finally crossed the clouds and Kunlun Mountain appeared in front of them. Unlike the one mountain with 12 peaks in Lingjian School, Kunlun Mountain did not use clouds to hide its location, but simply used clouds to separate the space. The real location of Kunlun Mountain was a mystery that few people in 9 regions knew. If not for Zhou Mumu's leadership, the other 4 sects' lead disciples would not have the opportunity to appreciate the real scenery of Kunlun Mountain. As the oldest immortal cultivation sect in 9 regions, Kunlun Mountain's scenery was mysterious. However, this time, Zhou Mumu led the 4 people directly through a winding path. Along the way, they didn't see anyone, nor did they see the various facilities in the immortal mountain. According to Zhou Mumu, her use of the lead disciple privilege this time was somewhat not in compliance with the rules. It was fine if they moved quietly, but if they moved with great fanfare, it might cause trouble. Especially in Kunlun Mountain, which was the most conservative place in 9 regions. If they caused trouble, it was likely to be big trouble. Their identity as the lead disciples of several sects would add fuel to the fire. So please keep a low profile. I'll take you directly to the place of origin from the path. Right now, the elders of the place of origin have something to do and are out. The elders who look after the place have a good relationship with me, so they will turn a blind eye. As long as you don't cause trouble, you'll be safe in the place of origin. In the entire immortal mountain, there are only a few people who can enter and exit the place of origin at will. Along the way, Zhou Mumu repeatedly exhorted them, especially in the ears of Wang Lu, because among the group of people, only Wang Lu worried her the most. Qianghua had always done things properly. Although she was unhappy with her, she had to admit that Xiang Liang's obedience was amazing. If she gave him accurate orders, he would not make a mistake. As for Zhanzai, if he really caused trouble, that would be good. Let the sect elders teach him a lesson. It would be best if he died. After walking along the secret path of Kunlun Mountain for a long time, they finally saw a lake full of infinite vitality. Thousands of kinds of spiritual energy gathered here. The lake reflected the thousands of years of history of 9 regions, which was dazzling. Qianghua appreciated the scenery of the lake with great interest and asked softly, "Is this the place of origin?" Zhou Mumu nodded and then called out to the 4 of them, "Follow closely. We have to go deep into the lake to enter the library. This process requires you to be calm, don't panic." However, the 4 lead disciples didn't need to be told. They each operated their own method, converged their power like a cocoon, and then followed Zhou Mumu's footsteps into the center of the lake. The leader, Zhou Mumu, silently chanted a spell to protect the group from the pressure of the lake. The lake water of the place of origin contained infinite power. If there was no correct spell to avoid the water, even Taoist Master King Pil would be swallowed up by it. The so-called not to enter and exit at will without permission was not just an empty sect rule. After experiencing all the caution along the way, the mentality of the several lead disciples could not help but adjust and become serious. After sinking into the lake water, they found that the lake water in the clouds outside Kunlun Mountain had the same wonderful effect. It was a means of separating space. The real library was not necessarily deep at the bottom of the lake. It was likely to be an independent immortal's cave. The lake water rippled and the light and shadow swayed. Unknowingly, the clear lake water was no longer in front of them, but a spacious path. In front of them stood a magnificent hall, which was made of white jade. It seemed to be carved out of a pure white jade mountain. The hall was pure and spotless, and the water vapor was dense. In front of the door, A white stone road extended to their feet. There was only a gray rock as tall as a person standing next to the door. The surface of the rock was covered with moss and fungi. The style was slightly abrupt, but it added a bit of natural interest to this solemn place. Zhou Mumu took the lead and walked quickly to the door of the hall. Suddenly, she stopped and nodded to the gray rock. Then, in the surprised eyes of Wang Lu and the others, the rock trembled slightly, as if it was also nodding. Sun Wukong? Wang Lu took a step back with a vigilant look on his face. Zhou Mumu snorted, turned around without hesitation, and hit them with the Vajra ring. Rude guy, you deserve a beating. However, the others were also quite curious about this moving rock. Seeing that she couldn't beat them, Zhou Mumu explained. This is the South Pole Immortal Wang, who is in charge of the library of Kunlun Mountain. Seeing the awkward silence, Zhou Mumu had to further explain. The South Pole Immortal Wang went into a dormant state 3 years ago. Under normal circumstances, he wouldn't have any reaction to the outside world. Because I brought an outsider this time, I need to explain to him. Anyway, don't think that this is really a rock. Wang Lu was stunned for a while, and then he looked hard at the rock. This rock is really the South Pole Immortal Wang, the legendary turtle that has lived for 3,600 years. Turtle your ass. Even if he doesn't respond, he can still hear you. Zhou Mumu was so anxious that her Vajra ring hit Wang Lu without hesitation, causing him to stagger. From now on, shut up. Although Wang Lu saw that the rock didn't respond, he didn't say anything more. The South Pole Immortal Wang, the longest-lived cultivator in 9 regions, was now a joke in the eyes of many people. Because the South Pole Immortal Wang was famous for his extreme cultivation, extreme survival, and extremely bad at fighting. In theory, he was in the Unity stage, but his actual ability was probably not as good as some Taoist master of Yuanying stage. All his mind was devoted to prolonging his lifespan, nothing else. This was also the reason why he was nicknamed Gue Suisho. However, Wang Lu didn't think so simply. Although his long life consumed his strength as a cultivator, it also allowed him to see too many ups and downs, the vicissitudes of life. In his view, the leaders of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League were all the juniors of the juniors. Moreover, there was another key problem. In the past 3,600 years, the 9 regions had experienced many shocks. Especially the sudden Great War of Immortals and Demons 2,000 years ago, also known as the Second Great War of Immortals and Demons, which plunged the 9 regions into a sea of fire and plunged the people into misery and suffering. At that time, people thought that Great Ancestor Dushing had completely eliminated the threat of the demon race in the First Great War of Immortals and Demons. However, they didn't expect that the demon race actually had a considerable power in 9 regions. Once it broke out, it was simply unstoppable. In that Great War of Immortals and Demons, the people of 9 regions won more or less by luck. No one knew how many immortal cultivation sects were destroyed, and the situation was comparable to the Age of Chaos. And the South Pole Immortal Wang survived from that era. With a bit of caution, Wang Lu and the others walked past the stone-like Immortal Wang. It was just that, not knowing if it was an illusion, Wang Lu always felt that the rock seemed to be looking at him. If it was an ordinary person in the current delicate situation, most of them would ignore it. However, Wang Lu was a person who believed in details. Since he clearly felt that there was a problem, he could not easily let it go. He turned around, walked directly to the front of the rock, and reached out to touch a clean place. Hey, what are you doing? Zhou Mumu's voice suddenly seemed to become ethereal and distant, because a line of words suddenly appeared in Wang Lu's mind. On the 2nd floor, the 4432nd row, 233rd bookshelf, there may be something you need. Chapter 443. After the group of people entered the library of Kunlun sect, Zhou Mumu once again emphasized several requirements and then dispersed to look for books that might be useful. Kunlun sect was the oldest ancient sect in 9 regions. The so-called ancient sect was based on the ancient method. More than 10 years ago, Lingjian School showed off its ancient style in the Immortal Gathering. However, compared with Kunlun sect, it was far from being able to do so. This independent immortal mountain seemed to be immutable since ancient times. No matter how the outside world changed, it could not shake its persistence. All the ancient sects paid attention to chance. But what was chance? This question was difficult to explain in a few words. The specific situation was, in the library of Kunlun sect, the books were not scientifically organized, neither according to the year, nor according to the event or task, but randomly scattered everywhere. Thus, the 5 of them had no choice but to split up and wander around the huge library that had an unknown number of floors and bookshelves. Then whichever book they chose would be their fated chance. If it was a normal person, they would definitely question this unreliable method. However, most of the lead disciples acquiesced in this method. As the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, each of them had luck that ordinary people could not match. If they were in the mortal world, they would be the kind of people who could forcibly open 10 times in a row without using any method. However, because their usual opponents were not ordinary people, their strong luck could not be reflected. However, if they believed in chance or not, most of them believed in it. Except for one person. It's really absurd and unbelievable. Zhang Zai's eyes widened in disbelief, and then he said angrily, "Is this the archive management of your Kunlun sect? Leave everything to fate? What a joke. Do you know how much waste this kind of unorganized archiving will cause? Do you know the historical significance of the information held by your Kunlun sect in the immortal cultivation world of the entire 9 regions? This kind of waste is a reckless waste of natural resources. Aren't you afraid of the lightning punishment from the heavenly tribulation?" Zhou Mumu was a bit dumbfounded by the accusation. She was stunned for a long time. Zhang Zai was furious. He pointed to the white jade library behind him and said, "Your Kunlun sect has always been an ancient sect. In some places, you are conservative, such as not allowing cultivators with artificial spirit root to enter the sect, or the one-to-one teaching mode. But in terms of knowledge, you can't afford to be conservative. Your Kunlun sect monopolizes too much knowledge. If you sell it at a high price, I can accept it. But you keep it to yourself and recklessly waste it. You are committing a crime against the entire immortal cultivation world of 9 regions." Zhou Mumu was scolded and lost the first opportunity. However, as a golden core Taoist master, her immortal heart cultivation was very strong. Very quickly, she stood firm and launched a sharp counterattack. The girl tilted her head slightly and sneered, "Idiot. Fool." Zhang Zai was about to go crazy from anger. Lightning flashed across half of his body, but the immortal heart of 10,000 motionless also suppressed his anger at this moment. This was not 10,000 Art Sect, but Kunlun Immortal Mountain, the hometown of Zhou Mumu. If they really fought, it would not end well. "Do you dare?" Zhou Mumu bluntly said, "If you want to court death, of course, I will accompany you." Zhou Mumu bluntly said, "If you want to court death, of course I will accompany you." After setting the duel, the 2 blacklisted each other, and then went deeper into the library in different directions. Although leaving it up to fate seemed rather absurd, everyone, including Zhang Zai, could faintly sense that something in the depths of the library was calling out to them. Perhaps that was their fate, or perhaps this was the mystical effect of Kunlun's oldest library in the land of origin. Of course, even so, Zhang Zai still believed that this kind of library management should be punished by the heavens. The second floor, 4432nd row, 233rd bookshelf. Wang Lu walked along the stairs on the edge of the hall for a long time. The long stairs seemed to be endless. On the second floor, Wang Lu was shocked, and then his heart strongly agreed with Zhang Zai. These idiots of Kunlun should really be punished by the heavens. The endless sea of bookshelves was fine. But the bookshelves were actually not numbered. Did he have to count the so-called 4432nd row, 233rd row one by one? Of course, as Taoist King Pil, his primordial spirit was powerful enough to scan tens of millions of units in an instant, so thousands of bookshelves was not a big deal. However, it still made people feel that these old antiques of Kunlun really deserved to be beaten. Before long, Wang Lu finally counted to 4432-233, and on the quaint bookshelf in front of him, there was indeed a heart-palpitating fluctuation. He casually pulled out a book, and the title alone made Wang Lu tremble. Zhongzheng Diary. Could it be the divine Lord Zhongzheng who once ruled 9 regions during the rise of Great Ancestor Dasheng, but was replaced by Great Ancestor Dasheng because of the failure in the Great War of Immortals and Demons? Divine Lord Zhongjing was the #1 person in the immortal cultivation world in 9 regions in the past. If he was not born at the same time as great ancestor Desheng, and if it was not during the Great War of Immortals and Demons, presumably he could have achieved a glorious career. Unfortunately, his lifelong foundation was swept away by the demon race, and then he was ousted from the position of the #1 person in 9 regions by great ancestor Desheng. In his later years he lived in a remote corner and ended his legendary life in loneliness and resentment, dying with the cultivation base of Mahayana stage. Before that, many people believed that he actually had the qualification to ascend to immortality, which was how he got the title of Divine Lord. Then it was said that before Divine Lord Zhongjing died, he left a diary, which recorded many secrets. It was just that the real Japanese version had long been lost, and most of the literary creations of later generations were passed down to the world. However, this was the origin of Kunlun Immortal Mountain, so it was impossible to collect a counterfeit version, right? Moreover, Kunlun Immortal Mountain was the sect where Divine Lord Zhongjing came from, so it was reasonable for him to leave behind his relics. Therefore, with strong curiosity, Wang Lu opened the diary. The diary was just a diary. Holding this ancient book that ran through thousands of years of history, Wang Lu did not feel the traces left by Divine Lord Zhongjing. Perhaps in his later years, he did not intend to leave too many traces of himself, or perhaps this was just a copy, and the real one had long been collected somewhere. But for Wang Lu, the content of the diary was the most important. A divine lord who had experienced the great war of immortals and demons had a far better understanding of the demon race than any outsider. Even if the most criticized thing in Divine Lord Zhongjing's life was that he was not able to resist the demons, Wang Lu read the book very fast. With his king pill level primordial spirit, Wang Lu read the thick book twice in the time it took to drink a cup of tea. Then a drop of cold sweat quietly fell. Sometimes the price of knowing the truth would be far higher than expected. Wang Lu originally intended to learn some unknown secrets from the diary, such as the secret of the power of the demon race. But abandoning the demon race and triggering the great war of immortals and demons is regarded by many as the turning point in my life. But even if I could go back and start over, I would still make the same choice. Desheng has his own persistence, which allowed him to sweep the 9 regions in just 20 years and ascend to the immortal palace. I am not as good as Desheng, but in my life of cultivation, I also have my own persistence. This was the sentence at the end of the diary, which came without a head or tail. The content of the first half of the book was actually not too valuable. Basically, it was something that everyone knew. Only this sentence. Abandoning the demon race and triggering the great war of immortals and demons? What the F***ck was he talking about? Abandoning the demon race? Who? 9 regions cultivators? However, since the appearance of the demon race in 9 regions, there has been an irreconcilable enmity between the cultivators and the demon race. The two sides have been killing each other since they met. There has never been a peaceful exchange, let alone any covenant. So, how could there be abandonment? Was there any unknown secret hidden in the great war of immortals and demons? However, apart from this sentence, there was no other relevant content in the diary. This abrupt sentence was particularly eye-catching. Wang Lu read it twice and determined that the diary had either been processed by later generations, or the secret of the great war of immortals and demons was something that even the Divine Lord Zhongjing did not dare to write too much about. Putting down the diary, Wang Lu pulled out the second book from the bookshelf. Biography of Great Ancestor Desheng. The biography of the Great Ancestor was not new, but this book was written by the Great Ancestor's personal guard. The book still contained the immortal aura of that Taoist master of peak deity stage. Most of the content was not strange, but there was a trace of strangeness in the writing. It was as if this personal guard had some sympathy for the demon race. With the temperament of Great Ancestor Desheng, it was hard to imagine that there would be a personal guard with such an unstable position. Could it be? Just as he thought of this, suddenly a voice rang in Wang Lu's ears. "Ah, my master, I finally meet you." This voice made Wang Lu frown because he clearly understood the meaning of this sentence, but the language used in this sentence was definitely not something he had heard before. In other words, Wang Lu touched the red jade pendant on his chest. It was obtained from a demon who had joined the Dixian camp after the battle for the 5 blood spirits crown. After a year of repeatedly studying it, he had not been able to understand its mystery, but now it was faintly heating up, as if indicating that a greater secret was about to be revealed. "Who are you?" Wang Lu opened his mouth, but his voice involuntarily became distorted, and the language was even more unheard of. "It's me, Master, your loyal servant forever." As he spoke, a thick black book jumped out from the bookshelf. The pages were opened, and on one of the pages, a black face was excitedly and viciously talking. "I have waited for you for tens of thousands of years, and finally you have summoned me again. Master, I can't wait to teach those treacherous humans a lesson. Let's go slaughter a few human cities, and then eat hundreds of human cultivators. I feel like I'm going to starve to death." "Treachery, but Master, why do I feel that my eyes are dark, and my body doesn't listen to me?" "Probably because you only have a mouth left, and it was sewn on the page as a specimen." That thick black book was the props used by the victors of the Great War of Immortals and Demons. However, in any case, hearing the clamor of this mouth, Wang Lu's heart was constantly in turmoil. Treacherous humans. Damn it, what happened in the Great War of Immortals and Demons? It seemed that it was really necessary to go to the demon realm, but where should the trip to the demon realm begin? Chapter 444. Wang Lu did not forget his purpose of coming to the library of Kunlun Immortal Mountain. They were here to find clues to enter the demon world, not to look for the ancient scandal of human beings. The world-shaking Great War of Immortals and Demons 10,000 years ago had faded with the long river of time for the people of 9 regions, but its influence was deep-rooted. The current Wanxian League was first formed because of the resistance against the demon race. The demon race was naturally tyrannical, and the distinction between immortals and demons was intolerable. These ideas had not been shaken so far. Today, the Wanxian League had developed to a high degree of liberalization of ideas and opinions. At the regular meeting held by the Wanxian League, even if some people called Hichu an idiot outside the meeting hall, it would not be taken seriously. However, the distinction between immortals and demons was the bottom line that could not be touched. You could express any opinion in public, but you could not support the demon race. But now it seemed that this deep-rooted iron rule seemed to be overturned. In the Great War of Immortals and Demons, the human race did not seem to be so innocent. Of course, things could not be concluded so quickly. Whether it was the diary of Chiang Kai-shek or the biography of the great ancestor, they were just minor details. And what that demon's mouth said was just a one-sided statement, which could not be completely believed. However, the development of the whole thing had begun to go beyond the control of Wang Lu. No matter how dazzling the lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect was, in the face of such a topic like the war between immortals and demons, it still seemed that his words carried little weight. Moreover, Wang Lu really didn't want to wade into this pool of muddy water. He himself was a human race, so why bother to speak for the demon race? While he was thinking about it, he heard the incessant noise of that demon. "Master, all these years in order to wait for you I have been sleeping. Now that I wake up I feel so hungry. Can you give me 2 pieces of human meat first? Otherwise, your loyal servant will starve to death." Wang Lu glanced at the mouth that had been made into a specimen and could not help but laugh. In this case, even if he really found it human meat, what would it use to digest it? Or rather, what was this thing that could still speak with only its mouth? Moreover, why would it inexplicably recognize him as its master? Thinking of this, Wang Lu reached out his hand and touched the red jade pendant. Could it be that the red jade given to him by that demon had the effect of disguising himself as a demon? That should be the case, including the fact that he suddenly learned the language of the demon race. It might also be the work of the pendant. If that was the case, it seemed that he had no choice but to go to the demon world. Didn't he leave this tool behind so that he, a human, could openly enter the demon world without attracting attention? However, the way to enter the demon realm was still a problem. Wang Lu thought about it and decided to try to get some clues from this mouth. Next, I'm going to launch the cruelest revenge against the humans. Haha, I've been waiting for this for tens of thousands of years. Master, how do you plan to take revenge on the humans? Wang Lu thought for a moment before replying with a serious expression. First, we have to kill. We have to unleash a large-scale massacre as quickly as possible. We have to annihilate all of the human cultivators in the kingdom of the 9 states, as well as all living beings on their side. Because for a race, there was nothing more terrifying than extinction. There may be brave individuals who don't fear death, who can resist torture, and who can go against the instincts of all living beings. However, when it comes to a race, there will be no such exceptions. Taking revenge on the humans and annihilating them is the most efficient choice. That's right, kill them all. Make sure that no human aura remains in every corner of this world. The mouth on the page became excited and roared incessantly, causing the thick black book to tremble uncontrollably. The threads sewn around the mouth also began to loosen. Wang Lu continued, however, this is not enough, because taking revenge on the humans has to be done on 2 levels. One is to attack the humans and the other is to please oneself. Simply killing is not enough to vent the anger that has accumulated for tens of thousands of years. Thus, when the humans are on the brink of extinction, we have to stop as soon as possible, because the show is just about to begin. Oh, it sounds like Master has some amazing plan? It can't be said to be amazing because what I want to do is very simple. I want to raise the remaining humans like livestock and use them as ingredients for my race. Whether it's slaughtering, devouring, or torturing them, it's all up to my heart's desire. We will treat humans the same way humans treat pigs and dogs. Humans are born with intelligence far above pigs and dogs, so if they are slaughtered and abused like livestock, the pain they suffer will be 100 times greater. However, this is not enough because too long of oppression will completely reduce humans to the level of livestock. That will cause us to lose a lot of joy. Thus, we need to leave a seed of hope for the humans. In the beginning, the humans will definitely not be willing to be oppressed by our race, and resistance will continuously appear in the race. We have to pretend that we don't know anything and allow them to develop and grow, even taking the initiative to nurture them. When they think that they have grasped hope, we will use thunderous methods to uproot them and let them feel true despair. If we do this over and over again, our pleasure will be endless, and our revenge against the humans will never change. Oh my God, as expected of the great and supreme Master. Just listening to your plan is enough to satisfy me, and my hunger has also vanished. When are we going to do it? Wang Lu said, of course, the sooner the better, but at present, I don't have enough troops in my hands, and the human race of the Kingdom of 9 States is at its peak. I need to transfer more manpower from the demon realm, but the passage between the 2 worlds has been cut off by the humans. Before he finished speaking, the demon shouted, "What's wrong with that? Let's find the flash race. They are best at opening up passages. As long as we can lock the position of the Kingdom of 9 States and open up a passage between the 2 worlds, it will take at most 10 years. I vaguely remember that 2,000 years ago, there was a flash race who opened up the passage. At that time I sensed the aura of the demon realm. Resuscitation for a moment, but unfortunately it was quickly suppressed, and I couldn't respond in time. What a pity. It turned out that there was a flash race in the demon realm that could connect the 2 worlds. It made great ancestor Dushing's magnificent feat of cutting the passage between the 2 worlds disappear. However, it seemed that the premise was that the flash race must be able to lock the position of the 9 regions in the demon realm, which was presumably not easy. Otherwise, after the first great war of immortals and demons, the 9 regions experienced the Age of Chaos, which was the weakest time. However, the demon race didn't take advantage of this opportunity to lock the position of the 9 regions. But you and I are in the Kingdom of 9 States. How can we contact the flash race of the demon realm and provide them with the location information? The mouth on the page laughed loudly. Master, how could you forget me? The voice of the howling race can pass through the 3 realms. As long as I eat and drink enough, getting in touch with the demon realm is just a matter of minutes. No wonder you were sealed on the page. But it seems that there is a way to go to the demon realm. Let this mouth roar and go to the demon realm to find a flash race person to pick them up. Then, the 5 of them disguised as the natives of the demon race and went to the demon realm. Although it seemed that there were still many things that were worth discussing, there was finally a way. The next step was how to put it into practice. Just as he was thinking this, Wang Lu suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. It was as if a sharp gaze had swept past him. His primordial spirit was full now, so his senses were especially sharp. He immediately put away the book and turned around. Behind him, 3 white figures gently descended from a higher flight of stairs. The 3 of them were dressed in white clothes and looked ethereal and otherworldly, as if they were celestial maidens who had descended from the heavens in the legends. However, Wang Lu was sure that the celestial maidens in almost all the legends weren't as fierce as this. Who are you? How dare you trespass on the Kunlun Immortal Mountain's forbidden ground of origin? The female in the lead had a head of beautiful black hair tied up high in a bun, and a pair of slender and sharp eyes. There was a beauty mole on the side of her lips, but it wasn't the slightest bit alluring. Instead, it was like a cold glint flashing by the edge of a sword. Wang Lu looked at her and smiled faintly. Senior sister from the Kunlun Immortal Mountain? I'm the top disciple of the Lingjian school. When encountering strangers in other people's territory, it was basic etiquette to introduce oneself. Right now, Wang Lu had too many things to think about, so he didn't want to complicate matters. However, when she heard Wang Lu call himself the lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect, that woman's willowy eyebrows raised and unexpectedly became angry. I don't care whose lead disciple you are. Trespassing into the forbidden area of Kunlun Immortal Mountain is an unforgivable crime. I'm going to take you to the sect elders for trial. While speaking, a cyan flying sword drilled out from her palm. For a moment, the sword chi was awe-inspiring, and the murderous intent filled the air. Wang Lu really couldn't understand this. However, before he could say anything, he heard Zhou Mumu rushing from the first floor. Don't do it. This is all a misunderstanding. Zhou Mumu came very fast. Before her voice fell, she had already flashed in front of the several people. With a hurried look, the girl said to the 3 women in white, Senior sister, you misunderstood. This is the lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect, Wang Lu. He's my guest, not a suspicious person. What a joke. That woman with the beauty mark didn't buy it at all. Her eyes coldly examined Zhou Mumu, and the corner of her mouth raised into a mocking smile. So what if you invited him? Who do you think you are? Do you think you're the sect leader of Kunlun sect? A mere lead disciple who has just mastered the king pill, you might die prematurely. I advise you to be a bit more honest. Upon hearing this, Zhou Mumu was stunned for a moment. Then her face turned cold and her eyes turned stern. She had never been the type to compromise. Previously, she was very polite to her several senior sisters, but since the other party didn't give her face, you don't need to worry about my future. Even if one day I really encounter misfortune, before that, I'm the dignified lead disciple of Kunlun sect, enjoying privileges according to the sect rules. And you Ziqing, if you're not convinced or envious, you can try to take away my lead disciple position. As long as you can do it, I won't say anything. You. The lead disciple position obviously meant a lot to Yu Ziqing, who had the beauty mark. Upon hearing Zhou Mumu mentioning it, she immediately became angry. So what if you have the privilege of being the lead disciple? The 3 of us are your senior sisters. According to the sect rules, we have the right to supervise your every move. We suspect that you're colluding with bandits and betraying the interests of the sect. Hey, don't try to deny it. Just now, we clearly heard you speak in the demon language. While speaking, Yu Ziqing actually made a move. Her flying sword bypassed Zhou Mumu and went straight for Wang Lu. She wanted to act first and report later. Zhou Mumu was anxious. No matter what Yu Ziqing's character and temperament were, her cultivation base at the peak of the king pill was solid. Her strength was above her own. Moreover, the 3 of them always made a move together. Sure enough, beside Yu Ziqing, Yao Nye and Ning Mao, the 2 senior sisters, also took out their magic weapons. One entangled Zhou Mumu, and the other cooperated with Yu Ziqing to suppress Wang Lu. The 3 of them had cultivated far longer than the lead disciples of the 5 uniques, and their strength was also much higher. With the 2 of them working together, they should have a 90% chance of winning. Ha! The next moment, Wang Lu sneered. A khaki sword light enveloped him, firmly stabilizing him inside. Yu Ziqing and Ning Mao's flying swords collided with the sword light, and were actually repelled. Inside the sword light, Wang Lu sneered, Senior sister Zhou, you're too polite. Not only did you entertain me, but you even specially brought 3 beasts for me to train. I know you're straightforward, so it would be impolite for me to refuse. Chapter 445. Shay. Alas, sure enough, I shouldn't have called this guy. On the second floor of the library in the place of origin, Zhou Mumu helplessly leaned against a bookshelf made of jade, which was integrated with the main hall, watching the battle in front of her become more and more intense. Wang Lu, this guy really couldn't be taken lightly. If he was given a little chance, he would immediately start to cause trouble, running to other people's place of origin to fight, completely disregarding the master's face and scrupulous. This kind of thing could only be done by Wang Lu. If it was some idiot, he would not do it so arbitrarily. However, from another point of view, if she stood in the same position, she would most likely not be able to help herself. Yu Ziqing and the other two were too much. Their arrogant posture and provocative words were all to provoke a dispute. However, Wang Lu was someone who would rather die than suffer a loss. He should be thankful that he didn't find trouble with others, but now he was actually bullied by others. The reason why Yu Ziqing and the other two chose to make their move at this time was not as simple and impulsive as it seemed. First of all, regarding the issue of Wang Lu using the demon race language, Yu Ziqing and the other two were most likely not lying. Wang Lu had always been unpredictable. Even if he said that his relationship with the demon race was not shallow, it would not be surprising. Moreover, this time he came to the library to find clues about the demon world. He must have found something on the second floor, but unfortunately he was seen by Yu Ziqing and the other two. The struggle between the immortals and demons was of great importance. As long as they held on to this point, they would have a reason to make their move. Moreover, the three of them were all at the peak of King Pill, and each of them cultivated the superior immortal method of Kunlun sect. Their strength was quite powerful, not below the lead disciples of the five uniques. After all, at this time Qianghua, who had the highest cultivation base, was only low-level King Pill, which was 2 or 3 levels lower than Yu Ziqing and the other two. In theory, as long as the Kill Immortal Sword didn't come out, Qianghua might not be able to gain any advantage. Yu Ziqing and the other two were naturally well aware of this, so they boldly provoked Wang Lu. Not to mention that Wang Lu, the lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect, was famous for being good at defense and bad at offense. As long as Yu Ziqing paid a little attention to her sword and didn't be counterattacked by the nameless sword, at least she would be in an invincible position. However, this was only the wishful thinking of Yu Ziqing and the others. Without truly fighting with the chief disciples of the five absolutes, one would not understand the weight and value of the title. It was true that Yu Ziqing, Ning Mao, and Yao Nie all possessed astonishing strength and were famous for their fighting prowess. Normally, they would win more than they lost when they fought with him. However, it would be too stupid to use Zhou Mumu's strength to measure the other four families. It would be too stupid to use the Zhou Mumu from before the battle for the 5 Blood Spirits crown to measure her current strength. Sigh, this is really... Thinking about what would happen next, Zhou Mumu shook her head helplessly. It's too late to regret now. Senior apprentice sister Yao Nie sneered. Then with a shake of her sword, Zhou Mumu was forced back half a step. Just wait to be punished by the sect elders. Zhou Mumu shrugged, indicating that she understood senior sister's weird logic. Provoking first, then fighting later, how stupid are the sect elders to not punish the 3 of you, but punish me instead? Oh, that's right, behind these 3 people, there was indeed a Kunlun sect elder supporting them. Their department in Kunlun Immortal Mountain had always believed that force was above everything else. At the same time, they also believed in the supremacy of Kunlun Immortal Mountain. Many times, their logic was somewhat similar to that of the barbarians of Royal Soldier sect. For them, reason was not important, winning was important. If they won, even if they were unreasonable, they would still be reasonable. If they couldn't win, they would still be unreasonable. This time, they seized the opportunity of Wang Lu speaking the demon race language to start the fight. As long as they could win, there would be a way to deal with the aftermath. The problem is, do you think you can win by yourself? Clang! A deafening sound rang out, followed by a strong gust of wind ripple, which set off countless circles of ripples in the White Jade Palace. Every bookshelf here was protected by Kunlun Immortal Method, so any external force could not damage it. Otherwise, no one would dare to fight with sword in this White Jade Palace. A slight damage to 1 or 2 pages would be a loss to the history of the entire 9 regions. After the loud sound came Yu Ziqing's somewhat inconceivable shout. What kind of sword technique is this? At the same time, Ning Yan said in astonishment, I can't see any flaw at all. How could a low-rank King Pill sword technique not have any flaw? His King Pill's magical power is still unstable, so there must be a stagnation in the operation of his method, so his sword technique must have a flaw. Junior sister, I'll attack again. You take the opportunity to see it carefully. While speaking, Yu Ziqing stabilized her mind and once again released her flying sword to stab Wang Lu. However, the latter just lightly drew an arc with the sword of Mount Kuan, which was able to block the full power strike of the King Pill. Moreover, the rebound force from the sword shattered Yu Ziqing's flying sword. Yu Ziqing felt a slight pain in her heart. Although the flying sword was just a consumable, it was still shattered by the sword, and the magical power backlash still made her feel quite painful. Damn it! What kind of sword technique was this? How could a low-rank King Pill guard be so impregnable? Coupled with this sword technique, she had already sent out 3 flying swords in a row, but not only could they not penetrate the opponent's sword defense, they could not even make the opponent reveal a flaw. Even if Wang Lu had always been known for his defense, this was too outrageous. Ning Yan, are you done? On the side, Ning Yan shook her head and then released a flying sword to join the fight. It's not enough to just watch. Just now, his sword technique was smooth and flawless without any flaw. I have to try it myself. Yu Ziqing frowned and took a step back. Although she intended to provoke the opponent this time, she disdained to bully a low-rank King Pill. Moreover, just now it could be seen that although Wang Lu's defense was amazing, he had no offensive ability. Thus, even if junior sister Ning Yan joined the fight, at least he would still be in an invincible position. And just at this time she suddenly heard Ning Yan exclaim, "Got it!" It turned out that the moment Ning Yan joined the fight, a huge flaw suddenly appeared in Wang Lu's smooth and flawless non-phase sword defense. The front was completely empty, as if it was tempting her to attack. Not to mention Ning Yan, who was the best at analyzing weaknesses, even Yu Ziqing could see that the opportunity had come. Wang Lu's King Pill was really not stable, and there was still a bit of sluggishness in it. It was not obvious in 2 or 3 moves, but once the fight dragged on, it would immediately be exposed. Let disciple of Spirit Sword Sect? Lie down for me. Yu Ziqing suppressed the urge to launch a joint attack, and gave the opportunity to her junior sister. And Ning Yan did not let her down. The flying sword suddenly became brighter in the air, and the sword body turned from virtual to real. From the consumable sword chi condensed into the ancient wind spirit sword that Ning Yan was best at using. This sword momentum was swift and fierce, which had reached the peak of King Pill level. Even if Wang Lu's sword intent was perfect, it would still be difficult for him to deal with it, not to mention his current chaotic sword momentum. However, the next moment, a gray sword chi flashed across Yu Ziqing's line of sight. The woman only saw a blur in front of her, and then she heard her junior sister's painful groan behind her. Turning around subconsciously, an unbelievable scene appeared in front of his eyes. Junior sister Ning Mao's shoulder had a bloody hole. Her entire body's transcendence energy had been scattered, and she fell to the ground in pain. The sword that she had been so confident in had also deviated from her trajectory due to the sudden injury. What the hell was that? Who was the one who released that gray sword chi? In shock, Yu Ziqing looked at Zhou Mumu, who was watching from a distance, and saw that the girl was also shocked. She looked at Wang Lu as if she had seen a ghost. It seemed that the gray sword chi was not released by Zhou Mumu. Then, don't look, it was me. I helped you open another hole in your body so that you can better adapt to the work in the future. No need to thank me, this is what I should do. As Wang Lu spoke, he slowly retracted the sword fingers on his right hand. Primal Chaos Heaven Splitting Sword Chi. Success in the first battle. Ever since the completion of King Pill, Wang Lu already had the ability to control both at the same time. The heart demon that once occupied his heart had also been cleverly dealt with, but it did not mean that Wang Lu could attack and defend at the same time, and at the same time he had the offensive and defensive abilities that far exceeded his level. His condensed King Pill indeed had the advantages of both. However, to bring out the strength of King Pill, he needed the corresponding method. However, he didn't have a set of method that could adapt to this new King Pill. Therefore, in the actual combat, he could only use non-phase sword and primal chaos heaven splitting sword in turn, and there was still a certain gap between the attack and defense. However, as long as he was good at seizing the opportunity, it was enough. With the low-level king pill, piercing the body of a peak king pill with a bare hand sounded simple. In the entire immortal cultivation world of 9 regions, there were not many people who could do it. However, the really amazing thing about this sword was, you can actually attack freely? Zhou Mumu still felt that it was unbelievable. Humph, sure enough, you're colluding with the demon race. Wang Lu's oath against the demon race had long been widely spread, along with his reputation as the lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect. But now, he actually ignored the entanglement of the heart demon and used an extremely fierce piercing body sword qi. Obviously, the problem of the heart demon was no longer a problem. And in this world, except for the demon race, who else could easily solve the heart demon of a cultivator? At this moment, Yu Ziqing really confirmed her judgment. If the previous demon race was just an excuse, then this time it was the beginning of her complete killing intent. The next moment, her usual flying sword shot out. However, it was no longer the original loose sword that was mainly used for probing, but the spirit sword Moonlight that was full of the killing intent of this Peak King pill. Ning Mao, who was injured on the ground, reached out her hand to touch the wound, forcibly suppressed the injury with immortal method, and then the spirit sword Ancient Wine shot out again. At the same time, Yao Nye, who was responsible for guarding Zhou Mumu, also dropped her. Her spirit sword Scorching Sun drilled out from her palm and attacked Wang Lu. The 3 Peak King pill cultivators simultaneously made their move. Their astonishing sword momentum was connected with each other, stimulating each other, which made their power even higher. Wang Lu calmly withdrew his left hand and drew a perfect arc with the sword of Mount Kuan in his right hand. The earthy yellow spherical sword defense impressively lit up and violently collided with the 3 spirit swords. Humph! Wang Lu coldly humphed. The sword defense drawn by the sword of Mount Kuan finally could not withstand the heavy pressure of the flying swords of the 3 Peak King pill cultivators and loudly broke. However, at the same time, Yu Ziqing, Ning Mao, and Yao Nye also fell into a hard position. Just now, the short frontal confrontation with the non-phase sword defense actually made them feel weak. When Wang Lu's sword defense was broken, he took advantage of the situation to put away his non-phase sword. The next moment, when the 3 Kunlun cultivators fell into a weak position, his primal chaos heaven-splitting sword qi broke out. Chapter 446. You guys. In the White Jade Palace, Wang Lu put away his sword of Mount Kuan and converged his murderous intent. Because all the enemies were already lying on the ground, the moment his non-phase sword defense was broken, he fully stimulated his primal chaos heaven-splitting sword qi. Thousands of sword qi flew out like a rainstorm, catching Yu Ziqing and the others off guard. Although each of them had a protective magical treasure, they were still battered and exhausted. Their magical power collapsed and they vomited blood. Among them, Yu Ziqing, who was the closest, had 3 bloody holes on his body and was seriously injured. As the winner, Wang Lu did not put on an arrogant posture, but rather sighed with regret. I feel that you Kunlun people still need to cultivate. You guys are very familiar with the sword cultivator's fighting style, but you guys are too young. Do you understand what I mean? Let me tell you, I've been through hundreds of battles and have seen a lot. Which lead disciple of the 5 uniques haven't I fought? You should know that the Night King of the Western Continent is much higher than you guys. Alas, I was talking and laughing with her. Cultivators, you still need to improve your actual combat level, do you know that? Alas, I'm also worried for you guys, really. You guys have a good thing, Kunlun is an ancient sect. They spare no effort to train their disciples, and their cultivation speed is even faster than Shangjing sect people. But in actual combat, it's too simple and sometimes childish. Do you understand? Do you understand? I'm sorry, today I'm talking to you as the lead disciple of one of the 5 uniques. Not as an ordinary sword cultivator. But I've seen too much, so I need to tell you a little bit of my cultivation experience. These heartfelt words made Zhou Mumu, who was listening from the side, stunned. Although she didn't know why, she always felt that it was very powerful. As if she would die if she said it. However, in the ears of Yu Ziqing and the others, these heartfelt words were particularly unpleasant to the ear. Crooked path, don't think you can just let it go. This is Kunlun Immortal Mountain. 9 regions is the origin of the orthodox immortal path. It will never allow you, a crooked person who colludes with the demon race, to run rampant. Wang Lu laughed again. You guys don't always like to make a big accusation, saying that I colluded with the devil race, criticizing me. You guys are too childish. However, before his voice fell, a voice once again came from the White Jade Palace. However, this time, the power of the voice was like the heavenly tribulation thunder, causing the immortal heart to sway and the Jade Mansion to shake. Who dares to collude with the demons in my Kunlun immortal mountain? As he spoke, a middle-aged cultivator stepped on Thunderfire and descended from the sky. Before Wang Lu could see his face clearly, a ring of fire enveloped him. The moment this ring of fire appeared, the temperature of the entire White Jade Palace suddenly rose by a few degrees. The formation that maintained the operation of the palace for 10,000 years also trembled slightly, showing the astonishing strength of this person. The person who attacked was an elder of Kunlun. His cultivation level was at the peak of the soul formation stage, so his attack was earth-shattering. Seeing the blazing ring of fire that contained the supreme path, Wang Lu didn't move. He just shrugged slightly and had no intention to resist. King Pill fighting against a soul formation cultivator. This kind of stupid thing should be left to his master. Wang Lu was very self-aware. With his current cultivation level, there was no one in the King Pill stage that he couldn't beat. That was not to say whether he could beat them or not. However, in the Yuanying stage there was a difference in the opponent. Ordinary Yuanying stage cultivators could fight and even crush them, but elite Yuanying stage cultivators or middle-level Yuanying stage cultivators would have a great risk. High-level Yuanying stage cultivators, even if they were just loose cultivators, were just courting death. Not to mention soul formation cultivators. What's more, why did he need to make a move himself? Martial uncle. Seeing that even the elder had personally made a move, how could Zhou Mumu sit still? She took a step forward and placed the Primal Chaos Diamond Ring on top of Wang Lu's head. The soul formation level ring of fire circled in the air and then flew back. Zhou Mumu, what are you doing? The Kunlun elder was furious. He roared angrily, his voice rolling. Zhou Mumu was neither servile nor overbearing. Reporting to Martial Uncle, this person is an honored guest that I personally invited. He is definitely not a person who colludes with demons. Martial Uncle, please investigate clearly. I heard him speak the demon language with my own ears. Are you going to protect him? What's so strange about the demon language? During the Great War of Immortals and Demons, most cultivators knew 1 or 2 words of the demon language. Great Ancestor Dushing was even an expert in the demon language. Could it be that he also colluded with the demon race? Sophistry. You have no respect for your elders. Even if you are the lead disciple of the sect, I can't allow you to be so presumptuous. I will ask you one last time, are you going to step aside or not? As he spoke, the Kunlun elder's hand ignited a raging fire again. It seemed that he really didn't put Zhou Mumu, the lead disciple, in his eyes. Zhou Mumu took a deep breath. Martial Uncle, have you ever seen anyone in the Kunlun sect who is greedy for life and afraid of death? Even if you kill me today, I won't let you hurt my friend. Stubborn. Then the raging fire in Elder He's hand actually burned down, causing Wang Lu to be dumbfounded. What the hell is wrong with Kunlun sect? Was there still any unity within the sect? Forget about Yu Ziqing and the others, but this guy in front of me is an elder of the sect. How could he so easily and carelessly kill the lead disciple? Is Zhou Mumu the lead disciple or the public enemy of the sect? However, seeing that the spirit-severing true fire was falling down, Zhou Mumu actually didn't panic at all. Wang Lu couldn't help but be stunned. Zhou Mumu was indeed straightforward, but she wasn't a fool. She was so fearless, most likely sigh. Just at the moment when the true fire fell to the ground, an aged sigh reverberated in the palace. Following the sigh, the true fire in the sky actually extinguished involuntarily. Who is it? When the true fire was extinguished, the elder also suffered a backlash. His body swayed in the air for a while before he asked sternly, "Sigh." The same sigh resounded again. The Kunlun elder's face turned pale, and his trembling became even more intense. It's Grand Elder. You're actually awake? Sai, that little friend of Spirit Sword sect, and the other children were invited by me. Don't make things difficult for them. What? Elder, he was shocked and angry at the same time. But the demon race? What's the point of speaking a few words of demon race's language? Colluding with the demon race? I also know the demon race's language. During the Great War of Immortal and Demon, I was their translator. How can these monstrous geniuses be mentioned in the same breath as Grand Elder? Elder, he still didn't let it go. I saw with my own eyes that he was talking with the remnant of Howling Clan who was sealed here. His expression was very relaxed. I was the one who asked him to find that Howling Clan. What? Elder, he was finally speechless from shock. Grand Elder, you take your 3 good disciples and leave. This is a quiet place. Later on, don't fight and kill here. After Grand Elder said that, halos suddenly appeared around Elder He's body, which tied him up. Then, with a twist of space, he was forcibly expelled out of the palace. Of course, Yu Ziqing and the others were also sent out. The whole process only took 2 or 3 sentences, but a peak deity stage elder of Kunlun sect was actually driven out without any resistance. Just now, that space lock could forcibly expel him. Naturally, it could also forcibly strangle him. People often said that South Pole Immortal Wang had 4,000 years of lifespan but no cultivation base. Now that he saw it, the rumor was not true. While he was thinking, that old voice suddenly rang in his mind. Alas, I'm old, so I'm muddle-headed. I actually forgot that before you guys, someone has already entered this palace, creating trouble for no reason at all. Wang Lu smiled but didn't comment. Previously, he, Yu Ziqing and the others had already fought with each other, but he didn't see South Pole Immortal Wang say anything. Now that he provoked a peak deity stage expert, he hurriedly woke up. To say that he was old and muddle-headed was too far-fetched. However, I really didn't misjudge you. South Pole Immortal Wang said. If it's you, perhaps you can really solve this mystery. Wang Lu frowned. What mystery? After reading those ancient books, you should have an idea in your heart. Indeed. This kind of shocking secret isn't something that a mere king pill like me can care about. Senior Immortal Wang, if you're curious, why don't you solve it yourself? I'm already old, I can't move. South Pole Immortal Wang said lightly. Besides, I've guarded this library for thousands of years and used all my methods to awaken the roaring remains. Only you must be hiding some important clues. Of course, the other chief disciples are the same. Right now, they're experiencing their own fated chances. Wang Lu thought for a while. Their fated chances were also guided by you, right? South Pole Immortal Wang said. This library has been passed down from tens of thousands of years ago. There are more than 1 or 2 mysteries that need to be explored by fated people. Wang Lu nodded in understanding and asked again, forgive me for being rude, but since you've already discovered these secrets, why didn't you take any action? Alas, I've been a spectator for my whole life. In this life, I don't have the power to participate anymore. South Pole Immortal Wang didn't say much, and his tone seemed flat. However, Wang Lu realized that South Pole Immortal Wang wasn't casually shirking responsibility. Behind his lifespan, which was far beyond that of ordinary people, was endless suffering and tragic price. However, although I can't personally participate, I can still give you a helping hand. The death aura in my Jade Mansion is more than life aura, so I can't pass on my power to you. Since I've lived in seclusion here, I've already used up all my magical treasures and spirit stones, and now I'm all alone. While speaking, Wang Lu saw a person staggering up the stairs. South Pole Immortal Wang, who was originally sitting like a rock at the door, was staggering over. From a close distance, it was completely a rock covered with moss and mushrooms, without even a trace of life aura. It was hard to imagine to what extent this 4,000 years old creature had evolved to. Here, this is my gift to you, South Pole Immortal Wang said and shook his rock-like body. A mushroom that grew between the cracks of the rock fell down. Wang Lu asked curiously, this mushroom is? It's called Ada. South Pole Immortal Wang was full of emotions. It has accompanied me for more than 300 years. I still remember how it looked when it was born. It was a wet rainy day. Wait, don't say anymore. You just need to tell me what this mushroom is used for. South Pole Immortal Wang said. After eating it, you can become bigger. Which part will become bigger? Chapter 447. There were many strange people in Kunlun Immortal Sect. As the most powerful ancient sect in 9 regions, Kunlun Immortal Sect was one of the most mysterious places. The sect was hidden in the clouds, detached from 9 regions. The sect implemented an ancient method that had been passed down for more than 10,000 years. There was no lack of mysticism in it, and it often taught maverick disciples. Zhou Mumu was an anomaly, while Yu Ziqing and the others were more in line with the general image of Kunlun people. However, today, Wang Lu had his eyes opened and saw what was called a real strange thing. In other words, as long as I eat this mushroom, I can grow 100 times, 1,000,000 times in size, just like a giant? This is really shocking. If you have the cultivation base of a supreme, you might be able to transform into a giant. But, at that time, my Ada would not be effective enough. Don't mention Ada. In short, although it can't make you transform into a giant, it might save your life at a critical moment. Then it would be impolite for me to refuse. If I have the opportunity to enter the demon world in the future and explore the truth of the past, I will definitely come back and tell it to you. South Pole Immortal Wang said. The truth of the past is not important. What you have to explore is the road to the future. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was startled. He associated it with his own judgment of Dixian in the group of immortal tombs. Could it be that South Pole Immortal Wang knew something? However, no matter how Wang Lu asked, Immortal Wang refused to say anything more. He was completely silent and completely turned into a stone. Wang Lu sighed and patted the surface of the stone. His hand was only stained with moss. Seeing that South Pole Immortal Wang did not respond at all, as if he was dead, his mind turned and he began to grope on the surface of the stone. He was groping for more mushrooms. It could make people 1,000,000 times bigger, and at the same time it could also make people abandon the enlarged body to save their lives at the critical moment. If this was not a divine tool, then what was it? And there were at least dozens of such divine tools on the surface of South Pole Immortal Wang. However, at this time South Pole Immortal Wang himself, for some inexplicable reason, was silent. Wang Lu suddenly thought of a certain great sage, who went to learn martial arts from a master when he was young. He was knocked on the head by his master 3 times, so he mustered his courage and went to his master's bed in the middle of the night. From then on, he received all the teachings and could not be stopped. Most of the time there was a tacit understanding between people. What's more, if he didn't take what was given to him by the heavens, he would be the one to blame. This was clearly an opportunity for him to become rich. How could he let it go? 1, 2, 3. Wang Lu calmly picked the mushrooms on the surface of the rock. To be on the safe side, he also wrapped his fingertips with non-phase sword qi. Fortunately, South Pole Immortal Wang didn't cast any restrictive spell. Thus, dozens of mushrooms were easily picked by Wang Lu. Phew, the mushroom picking girl is done. Let's leave now. Zhou, turning his head, he saw that Zhou Mumu had already disappeared without a trace. It seemed like the South Pole Immortal Wang didn't want Zhou Mumu to hear their conversation. But thinking about it, if she was still here, she would definitely stop him from picking the mushrooms. But since she wasn't here, Wang Lu simply took down the more suspicious books from the bookshelf. In a sense, Zhanzai was right. These antiques were really a waste of God's gift in Kunlun Mountain. For thousands of years, no one had been able to figure out the secret behind them. Since that was the case, it was better to give them to him, the fated person. Of course, among the things that he took away, there was also a mouth that couldn't stop. Living things could not be put into a mustard seed bag. For the sake of confidentiality, Wang Lu kept it close to his body. Oh, I actually came into contact with Master's breath at such a close distance. I'm so happy that I almost fainted. Wang Lu sighed, tore off the page of the book, and then put it under his feet. Master, I seem to smell human blood. At that time Wang Lu happened to step on the blood left by Ning Mao, Yu Ziqing and the others. Master is indeed worthy to be called a cruel revenge on human beings so quickly. Although I can't see it, I can taste the resentment in the blood. They must have suffered cruel torture before they died. I don't know if Master has enough minced meat for me to taste. I haven't tasted the flesh and blood of human cultivators for tens of thousands of years. Wang Lu thought for a while, took out a piece of sliced dog meat from his mustard seed bag, threw it on the ground and stepped on it. Oh, I haven't seen you for tens of thousands of years. The taste of human beings has become even more tender. I feel like my whole body is full of strength. Forget it. During the two great wars of immortals and demons, the demons had the upper hand in terms of power, but they were turned around by humans. Seemed like there was a reason. After I unseal you, help me contact the Flash race. I want them to open a passage for me, and then bring a few friends back. Of course, no problem. I haven't breathed the air of the demon world for a long time. I've almost forgotten its smell. While speaking, the howling race suddenly stopped, and a wave of sadness spread from the soles of Wang Lu's feet. Wang Lu asked, "What's wrong? Are you homesick?" "No, I'm just thinking I'm so stupid. Master, will you not want me anymore? But I'm very useful. Master, don't you want to contact the Flash race? I'll help you find them." As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Lu felt a violent shock from under his feet. It seemed to be invisible, and a ripple spread from under his feet to the distance. Was this the innate ability of the howling race, the roar that could directly connect to the demon world? TSK, this demon race was able to turn the 9 regions upside down twice in succession. Sure enough, they did have some ability. Fortunately, the proportion of them being amusing was high, which gave human beings a chance to make a comeback. After waiting for a long time, Wang Lu didn't feel any change. Just as he was about to ask, he heard a shameful voice from under his feet. "Sorry, Master, there's no one there. I think it might be because too much time has passed and things have changed. In the past, if I called at this frequency band, I would definitely be able to find someone. Master, don't abandon me. Please give me some time. I will try slowly. I will definitely find the Flash race for you and open the passage to the demon world." When he left the library, Zhou Mumu and the others were already waiting outside, together with Qianghua, Xiangliang, Zhanzai, and the others. As South Pole Immortal Wang said, they each found their own opportunity in the library. It was just that they still needed some time to digest it. Of course, as for what they got in the library, no one was willing to disclose it. Even Wang Lu remained silent after they walked out of the library. In the end, it was the most charismatic Shangjing sect people who broke the silence. 3 months later, we'll meet at my sect, Qianghua said, and then looked at the other dwarves. Is everyone okay? The several lead disciples looked at each other and agreed to Qianghua's proposal to meet in Shangjing sect 3 months later. As for why Shangjing sect, the reason was very simple. The equipment and props needed to be provided by Shangjing sect people. Among the 5 major sects, Shangjing sect was the richest. If Shangjing sect didn't pay, who would? After the 5 of them reached an agreement, they didn't waste any time and dispersed. The library in the land of origin once again restored its tranquility. After no one knows how long, on the bookshelf on the 2nd floor, a moss-covered stone slightly trembled. I accidentally fell asleep. South Pole Immortal Wang was full of emotion. Time and tide wait for no man, my energy can't keep up. Little Wang Lu, I still have something to say. Hey, where's Wang Lu? The heavy rock slightly twisted its body, but Wang Lu's figure could no longer be seen. Young people are really impatient. Hey, where are Maya and Asan? Don't tell me they were all picked up by that stinky kid? Alas, he's still young. Those mushrooms can't be eaten casually. But that's fine, this is also his opportunity. Unfortunately, Wang Lu could no longer hear the voice of South Pole Immortal Wang. After leaving the land of origin of Kunlun Mountain, Wang Lu directly flew to the foot of the Immortal Mountain and met Aya. This beautiful western continent girl was sitting under a big tree with lush branches and leaves. As a swordsman, her sharp temperament perfectly combined with the ancient tree behind her, showing the incredible realm of the unity of man and nature. For a moment, Wang Lu, who was standing on the flying sword, was dumbfounded. However, at this time, a heavenly fire suddenly ignited beside him. The Kunlun elder, who hated evil as if it was his enemy, roared, "Crooked cultivator, die." The elder, who was expelled by South Pole Immortal Wang, was actually lying in ambush at the foot of the mountain, waiting for Wang Lu to go down the mountain. What kind of hatred was this? When the heavenly fire appeared, Wang Lu almost had no time to react. The attack of a peak deity stage cultivator was too fast. If it weren't for his void spirit root physique, which made him far more sensitive than ordinary cultivators. Perhaps he wouldn't even know when he was burned. But at this time, although his primordial spirit had a reaction, his magical power and physical body could not keep up. Fortunately, the person who saved him was beside him. The girl who was sitting under the tree disappeared in a flash. At the same time, a golden sword light lit up beside her. The blazing heavenly fire disappeared under the illumination of the sword light. Elder He, who was lying in ambush with the invisibility spell, was also cut off by the girl's astonishingly sharp sword light. He was seriously injured and vomited blood. However, this practical elder reacted very quickly. Seeing that the opponent was a supreme-level cultivator, he immediately cast a spell and escaped from the battlefield using the fire escape technique. Before leaving, Elder He let out a shrill roar. "Wang Lu, you colluded with the devil race. Are you worthy of your Lingjian school's ancestors? Relying on your talent, you act unscrupulously, sooner or later you will die." Hearing this, Wang Lu frowned again and again. "This medicine I can't stop." However, why this Kunlun sect elder was so hostile to him was still a mystery. After thinking about it, Wang Lu could only guess that when he was young, his wife was taken away by a tall, rich, and handsome cultivator who looked somewhat like him. Since then, he had a grudge against this kind of person. In any case, Kunlun sect was not a good place to stay for a long time. Therefore, he directly used a Spirit Sword Heavenly Talisman to return to Spirit Sword Mountain. Wang Lu didn't even blink when he used the 100,000 spirit stones worth of talisman paper. The return location of this heavenly talisman was locked in the bamboo room of Non-Phase Peak. Chapter 448. Shay. Sorry, I think I'll take my leave first. The amazing scene in the bamboo room of Non-Phase Peak scared the Western Continent Night King, who was accustomed to great winds and waves, away. Aya froze for a moment and then got up to leave. Her posture was as if she was fleeing. Wang Lu looked at the girl's receding figure and then looked back at his master, who was still standing in the bucket with a righteous expression, and repeatedly clicked his tongue. "Master, look at you, you just want to show off your good figure, but in the end you scared people away." Wang Wu bluntly snorted and jumped out of the bucket. Then, with a wave of her hand, the clothes on the side of the bucket automatically fell on her body, covering her body. Seeing that her disciple was looking at her up and down with great interest, Wang Wu sneered. "You've been looking at me for so long. Isn't it time to pay?" Who knew that Wang Lu also sneered, and then took out a mysterious sky crystal worth millions of spirit stones from his mustard seed bag, and threw it to Wang Wu. "Take it and play with it, dear." Wang Wu took the crystal with great surprise, swept it with her primordial spirit, and recognized its infinite value. She was stunned on the spot and almost burst into tears. This is... I can't believe that after selling my body for so many years, I can finally get something. Wang Lu immediately corrected her. Although the face is also a part of the body, selling your face is not the same as selling your body. Moreover, your figure can't be exchanged for this money. This is my reward to you. Wang Wu was surprised. Reward to me? That is, food given out of handouts? Yes. I can finally eat food given out of handouts. The taste of food given out of handouts is really wonderful. May I ask, young hero, do you have any more? Wang Lu shouted, "Get out of here. Also, help me invite the martial uncles and martial uncles here. I have something important to report to my superiors." Wang Wu left the bamboo room with a face full of emotion. The elders of Heavenly Sword Hall gathered at Non-Phase Peak in a cup of tea's time. Lingjian School's advantage of having a small number of people was immediately reflected. In other sects, the high-level elders who were equivalent to a feudal lord could gather all of them with just a word. For example, in the past, the third elder only needed to shout, "Capture fifth junior sister." The elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall would gather together and think of a way to dig out the black sheep among them. Of course, this time it wasn't the fifth elder who stirred up trouble. After all the elders were seated, Wang Lu told them about his trip to Kunlun. Perhaps for Qianghua and the others, this matter was related to the war between the immortals and demons, so even the elders of the sect had to be cautious. However, Wang Lu's trust in the Lingjian school's elders was much higher than the first seats of other sections. He did not hide his experience at all, and even took the initiative to encourage the Howling clan member to greet everyone. Hey, these are my companions who are plotting great things with me in the human world. Greet them. Hey everyone. I am the cruel and powerful Howling warrior, Master's loyal servant. Sorry, I forgot what my name is. Wang Lu casually said. You can call me Enissi. Ah, Master, is this the name you gave me? Sure enough, it combines the good characteristics of cruelty, terror, and despicableness. I will remember it for life. After putting away Enissi, Wang Lu asked, Sect Master Uncle, what should I do next? You just said that the war between the immortals and demons had other secrets. This is not wrong. When Wang Lu was narrating his conjecture about the war between the immortals and demons, Sect Master Feng Yin remained silent the whole time. At this time he was even smiling, as if he had something to talk about. It's rare and wise for you to be willing to be honest with us elders. These things are not for you young people to bear. I suggest you put this matter aside for the time being. Now you can do it. There are still many things that you need to do. Don't meddle in the affairs of the demon realm. When Feng Yin Taoist master spoke, his right hand subconsciously rubbed his left wrist, as if he was soothing the wound. But as far as Wang Lu knew, Sect Master Immortal's left wrist had not been injured. But in any case, the Sect Master's objection was already very obvious, and Wang Lu could not help but fall into deep thought. Feng Yin Taoist master did not have to harm himself. He clearly had his reasons for objecting, but at the same time, Wang Lu also had his own insistence. While he was thinking, Master Wang Wu expressed her opinion. I think we should let little Lu go and see the world. As soon as her voice fell, Elder Lucien stood up in surprise. Junior sister, what nonsense are you talking about? Feng Yin also frowned. Junior sister, don't mess around. Don't you know the power of the demon race? Who knew that? Wang Wu sneered. I'm afraid no one here has a better right to speak about the power of the demon race than me, so I don't need you to remind me. After a pause, looking at the obviously ugly faces of her senior and junior brothers, Wang Wu's tone changed again. But from another point of view, there are also opportunities in the crisis. In the immortal dreamland, he obviously obtained the inheritance of Dixian, so this trip to the demon world is likely to be his big chance. Feng Yin said, no matter how big the chance is, it's not as important as his life, right? Junior sister, in the past you were also. Before he could finish, he saw Wang Wu's complexion change, and her eyes looked straight at Feng Yin. Feng Yin was startled, and his eyes became deep. Let little Lu use his hands and feet to his heart's content. You old antiques, don't get in the way. What do you mean by us old antiques? Be clear, you and we are the same generation. Bah, I'm young and beautiful, but you're old and ugly. Who's the same generation as you? If it weren't for being an elder, I would have long turned around and become a junior sister of the carefree peak. Very well, in short, I'll let you go this time. But if something really happens to little Lu, it means that the next generation of Lingjian school will lose the most outstanding disciple, and even the entire 9 regions will lose a precious seed. Wang Wu said with a smile. At that time, I'll replace him as a junior. In any case, I'm young and beautiful. Feng Yin Taoist master narrowed his eyes and secretly rejoiced that he was already at peak deity stage, so he could be happy and angry as he pleased. Otherwise, he would definitely curse out loud. After ending the secret conversation with Wang Wu, Feng Yin Taoist master changed his attitude. Next, we will fully support Wang Lu to go to the demon world. This sentence caused an uproar. Second elder, third elder. They never thought that their sect leader would actually be persuaded by their 5th junior sister. For a time there was naturally a voice of opposition. However, the sect leader of Spirit Sword Sect was still the sect leader of Spirit Sword Sect. No matter how easy it was to talk to Feng Yin Taoist master, once he made a serious decision, no matter how the other elders opposed it, it was useless. Wang Lu's trip to the demon world was officially approved and supported by the sect. Although the comprehensive strength of Lingjian school was ranked last among the 5 uniques, as a super sect, the power that it could erupt when needed was still astonishing. In the next 2 months, Lingjian school spared no effort. The elders of Heavenly Sword Hall took turns to carry out special training for Wang Lu. The focus was on how to deal with the demon race. This was undoubtedly a huge topic. During the Great War of Immortals and Demons, how many talented people in the 9 regions barely established a basic knowledge system for immortal cultivators at the cost of their blood? However, Wang Lu, Qianghua, and the others had agreed to meet in 3 months. To really understand the demon race in 3 months was simply a fantasy. However, the elders of Lingjian School showed amazing ability. They arranged a very tight schedule for Wang Lu. Every day, all 24 hours were completely filled, and they didn't even leave a minute for sleep. For someone who had reached the realm of King Pill, not sleeping for 3 months would not kill him. During the day, Wang Lu needed to receive the joint teaching of Lu Xian and Hua Yun in the Tongue Cloud Hall, learning various theoretical knowledge about the demon race. And it was also in this class that Wang Lu was surprised to find that the knowledge of the demon race in Lingjian School was far beyond his expectation. He was very sure that in the few years when he was the top student of Spirit Sword Sect, he had almost rummaged through all the books in Lingjian School, but none of them had such a detailed introduction to the demon race like Lu Xian and Hua Yun. They had even delved into the eating habits of the demon race. In the evening, when Wang Lu received the practical teaching from the 3rd elder, the 4th elder, and the 6th elder, this experience became a bit deeper, because he saw the spell of the demon race in the hands of the 6th elder. Chapter 449. Little Lu, remember, if you see this kind of flame, don't be afraid. With your non-phase sword bone, even if you resist it head-on, you won't get hurt. But if the color of the flame becomes like this, you must be careful. Remember to isolate it with your non-phase sword chi. In any case, you can't touch it, understand? On the training field, 6th elder Luli still maintained his amiable smile, but his hand had turned into a dark purple flame, which made his smile look even more ferocious. Wang Lu squinted his eyes and carefully observed the demon flame in elder Lu Li's hand. It was the genuine demon flame. From the breath of the flame, Wang Lu even vaguely associated it with the demon he saw in the Tomb of Immortals. He didn't ask how Lu Li could release the demon flame with the identity of an immortal cultivator. He knew that this must be a secret that couldn't be easily revealed. However, with the special training of such an elder who was proficient in the demon race's method, Wang Lu's ability to recognize the demon race was rapidly improving. The power of the demon race is too numerous to enumerate, but for you, the real difficulty lies in the penetration that is impossible to guard against. I believe that with your eyesight, you won't confront those demon kings, but I'm afraid that you will be defeated by some small characters. Since your debut, no matter what you do, you have been particularly smooth. Defeating the strong is almost the norm, but there are not many cases of bullying the weak. In other words, you have no experience in this area. Don't think otherwise. Bullying the weak also requires the ability. Otherwise, how do you explain those powerful people who fell under your feet? Caution is necessary, but it's far from enough. Without enough knowledge, the so-called caution is just self-righteous neurosis. You must fully understand the opponent. Only then can your caution be meaningful. The first is poison. The most troublesome weapon of the demon race is poison. The demon race's poison is impossible to guard against. Your non-phase sword bone alone can't make you immune to poison. The demon race's method of poisoning is also pervasive. Therefore, from now on, you need to seriously train the method of detoxification. I have 100 kinds of common poisons in my hand. You must learn to suppress and neutralize all of them. Seeing a row of porcelain bottles in the hands of the 6th elder, which were sealed with all kinds of strange marks, showing a strong sense of danger, Wang Lu vigilantly asked, "Is this the actual combat teaching?" The 6th elder smiled and said, "Of course it's actual combat training." Wang Lu immediately said, "I don't think it's necessary in actual combat. I'm a regular customer of the Misty Peaks cafeteria. What kind of poison have I not tasted? That famous Western continent chef is much better than the poison devil, but I can still talk and laugh with her." "Oh, who are you chatting with?" As soon as Wang Lu's voice fell, he heard Aya's faint laughter behind him. However, the woman's usual kind laughter made the hairs on his back stand on end, as if a great crisis was descending on his head. The next moment, Wang Lu reacted like lightning. He turned around and retorted, "Why are you everywhere? And every time I evaluate your cooking, you'll appear. How much confidence do you have in your cooking skills? Aya was stunned by Wang Lu's sharp counterattack. I'm just more concerned about other people's evaluation of me. You're following me, tailing me. You have no morals and shame the name of a knight. Alright, I have something to do now. You can go back first. I'll come back to teach you a lesson after I'm done. After sending Aya away, Wang Lu still had to face the sixth patriarch's cruel practical teaching. Well, with just a few words you can make a supreme-level powerhouse retreat. Little Lu, it seems that you're in a good state. Then, I don't have to be merciful. While speaking, the sixth patriarch slowly opened his mustard seed bag. God knows where he found more than 100 bottles of demonic realm poison, and each bottle of poison seemed to be quite old. When Luli took out some of the bottles, he even showed a trace of pain. But this made Wang Lu even more vigilant. How strange was this poison? Hey, sixth master, you're not going to use your position to avenge a private grudge, are you? Some time ago, Master stole from the sect's storeroom. She brought this upon herself. Don't take it out on me. Haha, little Lu, it's really sad to hear you say that. Do I look like a person who will use my position to avenge a private grudge? You are the lead disciple of the sect and bear an important mission. As an elder of the sect, what I have to do now is to help you do a better job. Rest assured, these poisons are carefully selected by me, and the effect is absolutely good. It turned out that the effect of these poisons was indeed good. When Wang Lu tried the first bottle, he almost knelt down. When the poison entered his body, his non-phase sword bone, which he was so proud of, had no reaction at all. At first, Wang Lu thought that after he mastered the king pill, his body's resistance to poison had reached a heaven-defying level, and he could completely ignore the damage. But soon he found that something was wrong, because he felt that he seemed to be melting. Hey, am I sweating? Just now there was something like a drop of liquid falling in front of me. Luli said, that's not sweat but your face here. As the elder spoke, he waved his hand and released a water mirror. In the mirror, Wang Lu's face was melting at an amazing speed, especially the part in front of his forehead. It turned into a drop of water and dripped down from his brow bone. Am I turning into some kind of witch who will melt without taking any medicine? Luli faintly said, if you keep talking nonsense, after the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, even the gods won't be able to save you. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was shocked. He immediately began to hold his breath and circulate his magical power to expel the poison. But soon he found that it was really difficult. Because no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't find any poison in his body, and the melting of his body couldn't be faked. Okay, then I'll change my way of thinking. If I can't find the poison, then it's fine if I don't look for it. First, I need to keep my body from melting. And there was a corresponding method in the non-phase method. According to his master, it was called the beautiful body shaping technique. It stimulated the sword bone with magical power, and then used the sword bone to drive the body to change in the direction that the cultivator wanted. It looks somewhat similar to the transformation technique. However, it was different from the transformation technique. The beautiful body shaping technique involved the cultivator's foundation, and it produced a permanent change. Therefore, every change must be carefully carried out, and the process of change was full of difficulties. When a cultivator entered the king pill realm, the body, magical power and primordial spirit had begun to be highly integrated. Therefore, it was impossible to change the body's image because it was likely to shake one's self-awareness, which would lead to problems in the entire cultivation method system. However, the non-phase method's ability to control the body had reached the pinnacle. According to the technique, Wang Lu began to try his best to maintain the shape of his body. Thus, for a time, it could be seen that Wang Lu's skin and muscles were constantly melting and decomposing, but there was a powerful magical power that forcibly maintained the body from collapsing. Good, you didn't waste time in a dead end. Elder Luli nodded with satisfaction. Judging from the speed and method of adaptation, you're indeed worthy to be the sect's lead disciple. However, this is not enough. Wang Lu didn't forget to let out a hey sound. His current situation was certainly not enough. Even if he had the king pill realm and his magical power was endless, the consumption of the beautiful body shaping technique was still far greater than the supply. If he persisted like this, His magical power would eventually be exhausted. However, he had no other way. There were a lot of elixirs in his mustard seed bag, but Wang Lu didn't intend to try them. When the nature of the poison was not determined, random use of the medicine was likely to have the opposite effect. This point was vividly reflected in the neutral diary. During the Great War of Immortals and Demons, many cultivators mistakenly took elixirs after being poisoned, causing the poison to intensify and die. Fortunately, this was just a drill, so Elder Luli soon made his move. Little Lu seriously experienced this feeling. This is not any kind of spell, it's just a feeling. Remember it with your body. He reached out a hand and pressed it on Wang Lu's back. A stream of warm magical power came through. The magical power was not strong. At least for Elder Luli, who was at the peak of the nascent soul realm, this magical power was like a light breeze. Whether in quantity or quality, it was nothing special. Then, Elder Luli controlled the magical power and gently hooked several joints in Wang Lu's body. Immediately, Wang Lu felt cool all over his body, as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. His melting body also stabilized. What is the principle? Carefully savoring everything that happened in his body just now, Wang Lu was puzzled no matter how he thought about it. As Luli said, the operation of the magical power was not any kind of spell. It was just the flow of magical power. It just inexplicably flowed through some joints in his body, but it inconceivably cured the poison of the demon race. There is no principle. Luli said softly. We only know that it can cure the poison. As for why, no one can say for sure. Wang Lu said. Then how did you ensure its efficacy? Try it out. Elder Luli lightly said. Upon hearing this, Wang Lu was surprised. Try it out. With what human life? Could it be that in the past Lingjian school also operated human experiments for a living? However, Luli didn't let Wang Lu think too much and urged him, okay, let's start the next round. Our time is limited. Wang Lu's time was indeed limited. For a top student of Spirit Sword School, 3 months could master too many skills. However, in the face of the special topic of the demon race that the elders prepared for him, it was still insufficient. The demon race was really a huge topic. The knowledge of the demon race in Lingjian school was far above Wang Lu's expectation. The previous elders undoubtedly concealed too many things, but this time they all came out. Even if Wang Lu's learning ability was amazing, he still felt a bit powerless. From the confrontation of poison to the world-breaking spell, there were even specific tactics for each demon of different ranks. In these 3 months, Wang Lu really didn't rest for a quarter of an hour. 3 months later, the appointed time with Qianghua had arrived, and Wang Lu finally achieved great success under the violent attacks of the elders. On the last day, Wang Lu showed what he had learned in this period of time in front of the elders of Heavenly Sword Hall. The sect leader pondered for a long time and then sighed. Very good, now you should be able to take charge of things on your own. Letting you go to explore the demon world can barely be at ease. Wang Lu was thinking, what exactly happened in Lingjian school that made the elders of Heavenly Sword Hall so afraid of the demon race? Although he had benefited a lot from these 3 months of training, no matter how he looked at it, it seemed to be too big of a force. Fine, in this trip to the demon world, he would expose all the secrets. Chapter 450. Half a day later, Wang Lu came to Shangjing sect. This was not his first visit to Shangjing sect. Previously, as a member of the Plentiful City Committee and the group of Immortal Tombs Management Committee, he was often invited to Shangjing sect to participate in important meetings and enjoyed the treatment of many Yuanying stage and even deity stage elders. However, at this time, when he visited Shangjing sect again, Wang Lu could not help but sigh with emotion at the magnificent scene of the #1 sect in 9 regions. Generally, immortal cultivation sects often like to stay high in the clouds, isolating themselves from the secular world and showing their transcendental status. Even the Lingjian school was no exception. They only set up the Spirit Creek town at the foot of the mountain to contact the mortal world. As for Kunlun sect, it was even more extreme. They directly used clouds to hide their mountain gate. However, Shangjing sect chose a completely different path. With their mountain gate as the center, they built an astonishing scale city, which encompassed hundreds of miles or even thousands of miles of land. Moreover, this city was three-dimensional. In addition to the important place above the clouds from the mountainside to the foot of the mountain, and even below the immortal mountain there were tens of thousands of people. In the beginning, it was not the intention of Shangjing sect. After the end of the Second Great War of Immortal and Demon, Shangjing sect's leadership position was basically consolidated, and many people came. However, it was impossible for Shangjing sect to accept all of them, so they could only reluctantly decline most of them. Some of those hopeless people left in disappointment, but some chose to persist. They settled down on the mountainside to cultivate. Most of these people had amazing skills, but unfortunately, they could not reach the recruitment threshold of Shangjing sect. They could only hope that one day, this notoriously eclectic sect could recruit them and fulfill their long-cherished wish. Shangjing sect did not prevent these people from settling down, even though the mountainside was also the territory of Shangjing sect. However, for a sect that could invent artificial spirit root, the so-called immortal cultivation rules were worthless. Because of Shangjing sect's indulgence, more and more people gathered on the mountainside, and they even gradually formed their own forces. Over the past hundreds of years, these people have successfully achieved a tacit understanding with Shangjing sect in many aspects. Their influence began to radiate downward, all the way to the foot of the mountain, forming many towns similar to the Spirit Creek town. The people in the towns were between immortal and mortal. Many of them were just mortals, but they all had inextricable ties with immortal cultivators. Their greatest hope was to get in touch with the cultivators who lived on the mountainside. Although the Shangjing sect looked down on the people on the mountainside to the mortal world, they were still immortal-level characters. After hundreds of thousands of years of development, this clearly stratified and clearly structured city was fully formed. According to the census conducted by Shangjing sect 5 years ago, the population gathered around Shangjing sect had exceeded 100 million. These people enjoyed the protection of Shangjing sect, and at the same time, like hardworking worker ants, they transported mortal world resources to Shangjing sect. This model was called the Shangjing model, which had long been the focus and research of the entire immortal cultivation world of 9 regions. Even though he had this and that grudge with the Shangjing sect, Wang Lu still had to admit that this was a great sect, and they had created a great model. When it came to the combination of immortal and mortal, Wang Lu's development of the wisdom sect was based on the Shangjing sect model. Now, he had long left the sect, and only occasionally pointed out the general direction of the sect. Present, the effect was good. The development of the wisdom sect was still crazily snowballing. In addition to the foundation that Wang Lu had laid earlier in recent years, with the change of the situation, the timely reference of the Shangjing sect model was also an important reason. Walking in the town at the foot of Shangjing sect, facing the endless stream of traffic, Wang Lu gradually fell into contemplation. He was now a Taoist master of the King Pill, but when he walked in the mortal world, his magical power and charm were restrained, unexpectedly no different from an ordinary youth. Although there were many people in the town, no one recognized this well-known lead disciple of the 5 uniques in the 9 regions. However, Wang Lu's peace didn't last long. Before long, Wang Lu suddenly saw the crowd around him parted. The pedestrians on both sides of the street were surprised and slightly frightened, and their eyes were focused on one place. At the end of the street, a pure white girl slowly descended from the sky. The girl's footsteps were swaying, and a faint fluctuation of magical power spread out, showing her identity as a cultivator. Of course, at the foot of Shangjing sect, there were tens of thousands of cultivators, so it was not unusual to see a cultivator coming down the mountain. In fact, among the people on both sides of the street, there were several foundation establishment cultivators. The reason why there was such a sensational effect was because the belt of this pure white girl was embroidered with the logo of the Shangjing sect. This was a cultivator from the immortal sect. Greetings, senior brother Wang Lu. The girl came for Wang Lu. She gently walked to the front of Wang Lu, respectfully bowed, and then said with a sweet voice, "I'm Yu Mengjun from Shangjing sect. Senior sister Cheonghua sent me to pick you up the mountain." Wang Lu was surprised. "Cheonghua sent you to pick me up?" The girl smiled and explained, Senior sister said that this gathering of the lead disciples was invited and hosted by her. So it should be Shangjing sect that comes forward to entertain you. Right now, a banquet has been prepared on the mountain, waiting for you to come up the mountain to welcome you. It's right for Shangjing sect to entertain me, but I'm curious, you, the Grand Taoist Master of the King Pill, was actually sent by Chonghua to entertain me? Is this to show off that Shangjing sect is full of talented people and endless extravagance? Upon hearing this, Yu Mengjun gawked for a moment, and then her sweet smile rose again. Because you're the lead disciple of one of the 5 uniques. So, even the ancient strange beast dream taper was used to entertain you. Ah, Yu Mengjun was really surprised. You can see it? Wang Lu chuckled but didn't explain anything. He had by Shixian an immortal beast that could transform into human form, so he was very sensitive to the aura of the same kind of human form cultivator. Although the rank of the dream taper was high, if it wasn't deliberately hidden, Wang Lu could see it at a glance. After her identity was called out, Yu Mengjun hesitated for a moment, as if she had something to say, but there were some concerns. Wang Lu shook his head. Okay, lead the way. Do you want to continue to be surrounded by people here? Yu Mengjun suddenly nodded. Oh, I'll take you up the mountain. Then a rainbow bloomed from the girl's palm, and the other end went straight to the immortal sect. This was the etiquette used by Shangjing sect to entertain distinguished guests. Wang Lu followed the pure white girl to walk on the rainbow. In one step, they crossed the mountain gate and came to a quiet and elegant bamboo room. At the same time, Zhou Mumu's vigorous voice came from the bamboo room. Finally, we've been waiting for you for a long time. In the bamboo room, Chonghua, Xiangliang, and Zhou Mumu were already there, sitting around a round table. On the table, there were all kinds of high-grade tea and snacks lingering in the air. And behind each of these 3 people, there was a girl in white quietly serving them. Any one of them was a Taoist master of the King Pill. Wang Lu was shocked. Chonghua, even if you want to pretend, you should know when to stop. Finding 4 Taoist masters of the King Pill to be your maids? Showing off how many people there are in Shangjing sect? Next time I'll find a supreme-level powerhouse to be your chef, are you afraid? Chonghua said, according to the rules of our sect, the formal meeting of the lead disciples of the 5 uniques should be treated like this. I'm surprised, Taoist Master Wang Lu. Don't you realize that you represent one of the 5 super sects of the Wanxian League? So the standard of treatment doesn't depend on your cultivation base? Wang Lu gave a tit for tat. What a joke. Is the standard of treatment determined by the level of the waiter? How could a King Pill level waiter be better than a foundation establishment stage waiter? How could they know how to serve tea and observe the situation? That's pure vanity. Chonghua did not show weakness. That's right, but this is the prevailing rule of the Wanxian League. Wang Lu said. It's clearly a prevailing bad habit. Doesn't your Shangjing sect claim to be the leader of the Wanxian League? Then hurry up and come up with an 8-point rule or something to get rid of this evil trend. Today, when I was taking a walk down the mountain, a Taoist master King Pill, an ancient beast in human form, suddenly came over and said that she wants to be my maid. Do you know what I felt at that time? It's like meeting a girl who has lost her footing. How could a beautiful girl lose her footing? Upon hearing this, Yu Mengjun was greatly frightened. Did I lose my footing? I'm sorry, I was wrong. Please forgive me. Wang Lu shook his head. Alas, most of the transformed demon beasts don't understand the ways of the world, and only act with a pure and innocent heart. Some are evil by nature, while some are pure and untainted. Senior sister Chonghua, Mengjun clearly hasn't transformed for a long time. She's as innocent as a child, yet you have the nerve to bully her and make her a maid? Chonghua didn't speak, but her eyes lightly swept over Yu Mengjun, which made the girl's whole body quiver. TSK, a dignified lead disciple bullying a child, do you have the nerve? Wang Lu took a step forward and stood in front of Yu Mengjun, completely isolating her from the powerful pressure coming from Chonghua. This child is pleasing to the eye. She reminds me of a junior sister from the same sect who also has a poor IQ. Anyway, she's just a maid in your Shangjing. Why not sell her to me, the fated person, cheaply? Taoist Wang Lu, your joke isn't funny. Oh, then you can think of a way to get eczema or something like that, itching to the point that you laugh. After not seeing each other for a few months, the relationship between Wang Lu and Chonghua was getting worse, especially Wang Lu. The more he looked at Qianghua, the more he disliked her, and he couldn't wait to change her appearance on the spot. However, before a bigger conflict broke out, Zhou Mumu was already very unhappy and slapped the table. "Are you two done? Did you call us here just to watch you fight? Isn't it time to get down to business?" Qianghua smiled and restrained her aura. "You're right, but let's wait for Daoist Zai to arrive, then we can get down to business." Wang Lu reached out his hand to touch Yu Mengjuan's head to appease the frightened dream taper, and then he sat opposite to Qianghua. While looking straight at the other party, he reached out his hand to eat the snacks on the table. "Hey, since you emphasize the standard treatment, then as the dignified lead disciple of Spirit Sword Sect, I should have enough food, right?" Qianghua snorted and ignored him. In any case, when Zhanzai arrived, they could get down to business and no longer need to care about this person. Then she patiently waited for Zhanzai. This wait lasted for a day and a night. Chapter 451. Cultivators who set foot on the path of immortality usually had a lot of patience. Because of the long lifespan granted to cultivators by the path of immortality, they could do things far more leisurely than mortals. Many cultivators preferred to close themselves up in seclusion, staying in a small and dark cave or palace for decades without leaving. This was enough to make even the most dutiful otaku in the mortal world feel ashamed of their inferiority. As for the chief disciples of the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League, although each of them became famous very quickly, when it came to patience, any one of them was far above the average level of cultivators. However, this time they only waited for a day before they all felt impatient. Having patience and wasting time were two different concepts. As cultivators, they could spend decades to perfect a cultivation method when necessary, but if it was unnecessary to waste time, even a quarter of an hour was too much. Is that idiot Zhanzai coming or not? Next to the round table, Zhou Mumu impatiently knocked on the corner of the table. And behind her, the king pill level maid very deftly took away the tea and snacks in front of her, and then placed fresh immortal fruits and vegetables on the table. How arrogant, he actually made the 4 of us wait for him for a whole day. And during this time he didn't even send a letter. As Zhou Mumu spoke, she unceremoniously took a dark red fruit and chewed on it. The clear juice flowed down the girl's white wrist, but before it could touch her sleeve, it was evaporated by her magic power. As the chief disciple of Kunlun, this posture of talking while eating obviously did not meet the requirements of etiquette, but waiting for a whole day was enough to wear down all of Zhou Mumu's patience, and she could only use her appetite to suppress the anger in her heart. In this day, the number of immortal fruits Zhou Mumu ate could be measured in tons. Even though Shangjing was rich, the maid serving behind her began to change color. After eating the fruit, Zhou Mumu still could not suppress her anger. Even the famous unruly people like Wang Lu came on time, and he, Emir Zhanzai, dared to be late. Affected by Zhou Mumu's stray bullet, Wang Lu laughed heartily. "Haha! I can't believe that a loser like me has become famous." Cough. Zhou Mumu choked on the fruit juice on the spot. At that moment, Xiang Liang, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke up. "We're about to embark on a very high-risk operation, and during the operation, an undisciplined teammate will become an extremely unstable factor. I suggest that Zhanzai be expelled from the team." Xiang Liang's proposal was quite surprising, but it was not difficult to see from his frown that this self-proclaimed soldier hated undisciplined behavior the most. And as a member of a team of 5, Zhanzai was actually a day late for no reason. Zhou Mumu was delighted. "Well said, I agree. Just thinking of working with that Edie makes me sick." Wang Lu kindly reminded her. "Nausea may also be because you ate too much." Zhou Mumu glared at her, then picked up a fruit and ate it. At the same time, she turned to Qianghua and said, "Zhanzai is late for no reason. We have waited for him for a whole day. We have done our best. Shall we fire him now?" Before Qianghua could open her mouth, Wang Lu already said, "Being late for no reason is not necessarily true. There's another possibility." Zhou Mumu frowned. Wasn't the relationship between Zhanzai and Wang Lu not good? How could he speak for Zhanzai this time? Then she heard Wang Lu say, "It's possible that senior brother Zai has unfortunately died in these 3 months, so it's excusable that he couldn't come." Of course, considering his identity as the lead disciple of one of the 5 uniques, if he really died, there should have been news about it. But now, the immortal cultivation world of 9 regions is calm. Therefore, it's also possible that during his cultivation, he fell into a situation where he could neither live nor die. The 10,000 Arts sect tried their best to rescue him, but they could only barely keep his life. At this time, how could he still think about the 5 of us? Thus, he had no choice but to stand us up. Zhou Mumu was silent for a long time. She even forgot to eat the fruit in her hand. She just stared at Wang Lu and then sighed with emotion. Sure enough, it's still the Wang Lu I know. With that, she put down the fruit. Then what do you think? Wang Lu said, "There's a proverb in the Western continent. If the mountain doesn't come, I will." Since senior brother Zhan Zai is in a state of near-death emergency treatment, shouldn't we, as his teammates, at least go and lay a wreath or something? With that, Wang Lu took out a ready-made wreath from his mustard seed bag. There were 2 lines of words on both sides. On the left side, "Lonely without a wife." On the right side, "Sweet gay afterlife." Zhou Mumu was stunned. What kind of messy things are in your mustard seed bag? Did you even prepare a wreath? Wang Lu raised his eyebrows and happily said, "Actually, I also prepared one for you, senior sister. Don't show it to me." In any case, under the proposal of Wang Lu, the 4 of them decided to go to the 10,000 Arts sect to investigate. It was hard to believe that Zhan Zai had really died. However, at the same time, he was not the kind of person who was late for no reason. Although he didn't have any organizational discipline, punctuality was the basic etiquette of a person. As the lead disciple, he should be able to do this. Did he really encounter some trouble? Even though Zhan Zai's popularity among the 5 of them was very poor, since he was their teammate, they should pay attention to him. Before leaving, Wang Lu made a difficult request to Chong Hua. "I don't know if I'll come back or not, so I want this little thing as a greeting gift," Wang Lu said and then pointed at Yu Mingjun. The little girl, who had taken human form in the dream, had a terrified and anxious expression on her face. As the fuse that caused the enmity between Wang Lu and Chong Hua, she almost couldn't control herself. Chong Hua gawked for a moment, and then seriously shook her head. "Impossible." Wang Lu then said, "Then how about we send her to study in Lingjian school as a foreign student?" Chong Hua was stunned again because she didn't expect Wang Lu to be so persistent with this dream taper. In terms of rarity, although the dream taper also had an ancient bloodline, its bloodline was not pure. At least compared to the mountain spirit in Lingjian school, it was much worse. In terms of perception, it was just above average. "Let's talk about it later." This time, Chong Hua didn't insist. "When I come back, I will report it to the sect. If it's in the form of a foreign student, perhaps it's okay." Wang Lu cupped his hands in obeisance. "Then I'll have to trouble senior sister Chong Hua." Chong Hua was flattered. When Wang Lu cupped his hands in obeisance, the woman even subconsciously summoned her immortal dew sword to defend herself, because Wang Lu's polite posture was too abnormal. As a matter of fact, Wang Lu also felt that he was very abnormal. Since he saw this Yu Mingjun, his chest felt hot. Of course, it was not the heat of puberty, but the faint heat of the red jade pendant hanging on his chest, as if it was reminding him of something. Although the howling Enesy under his feet didn't open its mouth, Wang Lu judged that this dream taper was probably not as simple as an ancient beast. Unfortunately, the secret of Yu Mingjuan's body could only be explored after they returned. For now, he had to solve the matter of Zhan Zai first. From Shangjing sect to 10,000 Arts sect, it only took a cup of tea's time. As early as 100 years ago, the rich and overbearing Shangjing sect had established a transportation network that extended in all directions with the help of the 9 regions map. Moreover, it was independent of third-party organizations such as Shunfeng Bank, which was completely under the sole control of Shangjing sect. When needed, Shangjing sect could use this transportation network to send hundreds of experts to any corner of the 9 regions within a cup of tea's time. The terrifying strategy of the 9 regions, which was the leader of the Wanxian League, could be seen. When they arrived at the entrance of 10,000 Arts sect, it was another scene. Different from the grand atmosphere of Shangjing sect, And also different from the independence of Kunlun Immortal World, 10,000 Arts Sect was the only one among the 5 unique sects that didn't completely set up their sect's facilities in the mountains. Instead, it was spread out in a valley, and then built many branches around the valley in all directions. According to the 10,000 Arts Sect, this was to take advantage of the different terrain environment to facilitate the research of different spells. However, over the years, a large number of spells research had disturbed the surrounding spiritual energy, making other places unsuitable for human survival, except for certain areas. Just by standing in front of the valley, one could feel a unique, repelling aura from thousands of miles away. At the entrance of the valley stood 24 meters tall giant puppets, their terrifying fluctuations spread out, making the people in front of the entrance disappear without a trace. And these puppets were one of the academic crystallization of 10,000 Arts Sect, powerful puppets with the strength of Yuanying stage. Then Xianghua handed over the visiting card to the gatekeeper puppet. After receiving the letter with the Shangjing Sect's logo, the puppet immediately turned around and entered the mountain. Before long, it returned to the entrance of the valley and waved its thick arm to show its welcome. It seems like Zhan Zai is really in the sect. Xianghua said. The visiting card clearly states that we're here to visit Zhan Zai. Now that they've let us pass, it's impossible that he's not here. Wang Lu faintly said. Perhaps he's really not here, and the 10,000 Arts Sect elders let us see him for the last time. How big of a grudge do you have with Zhan Zai? Zhou Mumu couldn't help but ask. While talking, the 4 of them officially entered the 10,000 Arts Sect. After entering the valley, a huge translucent arrow lit up under their feet, which guided them forward. However, throughout the whole journey, no one accompanied them, not even a guiding puppet, completely letting them go. Fortunately, the 4 of them didn't have any other plans. They just followed the direction of the arrow. Along the way, they deeply appreciated the uniqueness of the 10,000 Arts Sect. Different from the quiet and elegant title of the Immortal Cultivation World's library, the 10,000 Arts Sect presented a noisy atmosphere. Vermilion Bird 400, Azure Dragon 100, White Tiger 600, Black Tortoise 30. First try began. In the middle of the valley, on one side of the spacious road, several cultivators of the 10,000 Arts Sect were setting up a tall furnace, which was surrounded by a 4-elements array. Different types of magical power were input into the furnace, which was then condensed into a point through the complex internal structure of the furnace, producing a mysterious and incredible effect. A burst of light flashed, and in the middle of the furnace, a gray iron core slowly condensed out. Failed again. The 29th time, I can't even produce a golden core. Is there really a problem with the formula? Try reducing the magical power of the Azure Dragon form to 30. It is said that the probability of producing a golden core would increase. Ridiculous. How could reducing the input increase the output? Several cultivators around the iron furnace incessantly quarreled. A moment later, the contradiction intensified, and their faces turned red. However, to solve the contradiction, the cultivators of the 10,000 Arts Sect didn't use their fists and feet. Instead, they each fished out a small puppet, activated it with a spell, and then fiercely fought on the ground. Each of those small puppets was made to look like a beautiful girl. Their clothing and appearance were very exquisite. During the fight, their clothes would be damaged from time to time, revealing their underwear and snow-white skin, which caused several cultivators of the 10,000 Arts Sect to shout and scream. Zhou Mumu watched the whole process, and the corner of her mouth curled up. A group of fools destined to be alone for life. Don't you think so, junior brother Wang Lu? The girl turned her head, intending to get Wang Lu's approval. However, she saw that Wang Lu was staring at those several small puppets, seemingly fascinated. You actually. Chapter 452. It's really a genius invention. In the 10,000 Arts Valley, Wang Lu was still immersed in the scene that he just saw. In his opinion, the props used by several cultivators of 10,000 Arts Sect to resolve disputes was simply a genius idea. Hey, are your geniuses so worthless? A few second-rate puppetry skills plus a vulgar aesthetic actually made you the lead disciple of Spirit Sword sect? Pay so much attention to them? Sure enough, Lingjian school is full of abnormal people. Regarding Wang Lu's enthusiasm, Zhou Mumu could not understand it at all. Wang Lu had long expected this. Although Zhou Mumu had a good relationship with him, it couldn't change the fact that she was, after all, a vulgar person. Therefore, Wang Lu just smiled and then asked, "So, in your opinion, what is a genius invention? Those amazingly powerful spells? Or a method that has a particularly fast cultivation speed? But what's the use of those, in addition to creating a few geniuses? For example, our sect's stellar sword method is known as the inheritance of the immortal world. But apart from sect leader and Zhu Shiyao, who else can really bring out the sword method to the extreme? What's the significance of such a method for the entire 9 regions?" Zhou Mumu frowned and wanted to refute, but she didn't know where to start. Wang Lu struck while the iron was hot. The so-called genius invention not only depends on how high the technical content is and how ingenious the creativity is, but also the impact that this creativity may bring. And just now, the puppets used by the several disciples of 10,000 Arts sect almost let me see the coming of a new era. Zhou Mumu said, although I don't want to ask, but what kind of new era do you see? A new era where there are no more bloody disputes, no more cruel internal crushing of the sect. Everyone places their contradictions on the cute girls, and under the healing brilliance of the girls, everyone becomes kind. Zhou Mumu was silent for a long time. Seriously, I think you should find a girlfriend. Although the lead disciples of the 5 uniques generally focus on cultivation, and most of them are single for a long time, but in your current state, if you continue to be single sooner or later, you will be completely abnormal. After Wang Lu reluctantly left the battlefield of the puppet girl, the group continued to move forward in the direction pointed by the arrow. Not long after, there was another commotion ahead. On one side of the road, on top of a pagoda built from 5 elements pure gold, a cultivator of 10,000 Arts sect, who seemed to be low-level foundation establishment, was stepping on 2 grotesquely shaped, rather large boots, and his body was covered with various kinds of unknown talismans. Under the tower, a large group of cultivators of 10,000 Arts sect surrounded a 5 elements spirit altar. Some of them poured their magical power into the spirit altar, causing the entire 5 elements fine gold tower to bloom with spiritual light. Some used operators to calculate complex numbers and shouted out the results. There were also some who held a recording jade tablet and kept silent as they faithfully recorded everything. Above the 5 elemental spiritual platform, a king pill stage cultivator was in control of the situation. He was staring at the Foundation Establishment stage cultivator in combat boots. The Foundation Establishment cultivator nodded and gave a thumbs up. The King Pill stage cultivator then said in a loud and clear voice, "Cloud Dragon Boots Test 172 begins now, ignite and launch." The people around the 5 elements spirit altar suddenly increased their magical power transmission, and the golden pagoda also burst out in astonishing energy in an instant. The boots of the Foundation Establishment stage cultivator and the pagoda linked, shooting out 2 dazzling beams of light, and he himself, borrowing the recoil force, soared into the sky, breaking through the clouds. The cultivators under the pagoda nervously watched. When the Foundation Establishment stage cultivator broke through the clouds, they hugged each other and cheered. "Ha ha ha! It's a success! The Cloud Dragon Boots is a success!" Before their voice fell, they heard a muffled bang in the sky, and a shock wave swept through the clouds. Then, a meteorite-like brilliance rapidly fell. It was that Foundation Establishment stage cultivator. At this time, one of his boots was missing, and the other one was constantly ejecting colorful light, which seemed very unstable. The flying trajectory of the cultivator was also messy. Before long, he directly rushed to the ground, aiming not far away from Wang Lu and the others. With the ability of a Foundation Establishment stage cultivator, such a high-speed collision would undoubtedly kill him. However, his fellow sect members were indifferent. Instead, they even cast him an excited look, watching him fall to the ground. 10,000 Arts sect is really a group of animals. The 10,000 Arts sect was indifferent, but Zhou Mumu couldn't stand it anymore. She spat out a mouthful of saliva and stamped her foot, causing a clear spring to break through the ground. The clear water formed a soft bed, which perfectly caught the falling foundation establishment stage cultivator. Wrapped in the waterbed, the cultivator was dumbfounded. He was at a loss, just like everyone who had just escaped from a great calamity. Zhou waved her hand. Humph, no need to thank me. However, before Zhou could turn around and leave, she heard a roar from behind her. Who are you? What are you doing here? It was the Taoist Master King Pil, who was in charge of the overall situation on the five-element spirit platform. He seemed to be between young and middle-aged, and his cultivation time should be continuous. His middle-level King Pil cultivation base and deep background showed that he must have a high position in the 10,000 Arts sect. At this time he was glaring at Zhou. As a fellow King Pil, although Zhou was just a low-level newcomer, in addition to the several lead disciples of the five uniques, she was not afraid of anyone else, let alone the cultivators of 10,000 Arts sect, who had always been unpleasant to her eyes. What do you care about? That Taoist Master King Pil angrily said. You interfered with our important experiment, and you dare to ask me whether I care or not. The 172nd experiment of the Cloud Dragon Boots was completely scrapped because of your misconduct. What? Is it my responsibility that the broken thing you designed went wrong? Zhou anger was also aroused, and she immediately responded with equal harshness. That King Pil showed an impatient expression. Academic research has never been afraid of failure. What I'm afraid of is not being able to learn from failure. Just now, if we let him fall freely, we can get important data from the feedback of the ground, and then adjust the boots for the next experiment. After repeated failures, there will always be a day of success. However, because of your meddling, all the efforts that we have put into this experiment have finally been declared completely useless. Zhou inexplicably pointed at the foundation establishment cultivator on the waterbed. If I didn't make a move, your junior brother would have turned into a meat patty. You're the meat patty, your whole family is meat patty. While speaking, the foundation establishment cultivator whose life was saved stood up to accuse Zhou. This experiment is of great importance. The Cloud Dragon Boots is an epoch-making invention. My mere life is not worth mentioning at all. Let alone my whole body is covered with protective talismans, even if all the talismans are ineffective. As long as the experiment is successful, it's enough. Being pointed at and scolded by the person in question, Zhou was speechless for a long time, because she really had nothing to say. The girl just inwardly thought that if one day she became the leader of the Wanxian League, the first thing she would do would be to ban the 10,000 Arts sect. Because of the suffocation, Zhou said to Wang Lu, the 10,000 Arts sect is really a group of psychopaths, don't you think so? Who knew that? Wang Lu actually shook his head. I think it was indeed your mistake just now. Senior Sister Zhou, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. We have to learn to respect the values of the 10,000 Arts sect. Zhou incredulously looked at Wang Lu, and then her eyes gradually became suspicious. I heard that, in the past, you have a good relationship with a same-sex friend who joined the 10,000 Arts sect, are you? In any case, that King Pil of the 10,000 Arts sect didn't continue to pester them, because the preparation for the 173rd experiment was about to begin. Instead of wasting time arguing with a barbarian from Kunlun Immortal World, it was better to put their precious time and energy into more valuable things. When the Cloud Dragon Boots became popular in the 9 regions, the first thing they would do was to print Zhou face on the sole of the boots. However, after 2 incidents, the atmosphere of the 10,000 Arts sect was clear at a glance. And after seeing that foundation establishment cultivator who didn't hesitate to sacrifice his life for the sake of experimental data, the several lead disciples seemed to have guessed the reason why Zhanzai was late this time. Sure enough, when they followed the arrow all the way to Zhanzai's residence, the 4 of them heard Zhanzai's voice from inside the door. What are you guys doing here? His tone was full of impatience, which made Zhou furious. The girl unceremoniously kicked open the door of Zhanzai's room. She was about to ask him why he dared to stand them up when she was startled by the scene inside the door and screamed, "You're a pervert!" While shouting, Zhou withdrew from the room. Her left hand held the diamond ring, and her right hand held the blood-marked divine spear, assuming a fighting posture. Inside the room, Zhanzai was sitting cross-legged naked in the middle of the room. And because he was sitting cross-legged, a certain indecent thing was naturally presented in front of Zhou Mumu's eyes. The girl's temperament was straightforward and bold, but it didn't mean that she was knowledgeable in this regard. Considering that she was full of anger when she broke the door, the change in her mood could be imagined. The fact that she didn't use the blood-marked divine spear to confront him on the spot was already the result of Taoist Master King Pill's self-restraint. Zhanzai was very calm about this, and he even counterattacked. "What are you yelling for? Don't you have any sense of propriety or shame?" Zhou Mumu scolded, "You an exhibitionist? Do you think you're worthy to talk about propriety? This is my home. What does it have to do with you if I'm willing to expose myself?" Zhanzai unceremoniously said, "Moreover, don't you feel apologetic to disturb me at the critical time of my experiment?" Sorry. How could you have the face to ask that? You're late for a whole day." Zhanzai confidently said, "I'm doing an experiment. What does your experiment have to do with being late? This experiment is very important." Zhanzai tried to explain patiently, "In order to complete this experiment, I think it's completely understandable to be late for a few days. As long as you have the logical thinking ability of a normal person, you can understand this logic." Zhou Mumu naturally couldn't understand, so she reached out and pushed Wang Lu, who was next to her, forward. "You come and talk to him." Wang Lu bluntly smiled and said, "Senior Brother Zai, has your eternal tree seed germinated? You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."